Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Ті, хто води всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to today, 8:20 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And today we got big business happening in Crimea, and also China's getting quite frisky over there with Taiwan. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the ongoing conflict inside of Ukraine, and also what appears to be an up-and-coming war with Taiwan. We have major news that has been going on over the past 24 hours that is leading us to believe that a war beginning with Taiwan may be imminent at this point, although we will have to look into this a little bit more on stream and also try and see what's happening at the very moment that we're live right now, because there are still ongoing developments on this. But at the exact same time, we've also been able to hear that a major purge has continued inside the Russian Federation, with more Russian officials being arrested on charges of bribery, and not only that, massive Ukrainian attacks pummeling the Crimean Peninsula in the area of Alushta, Sevastopol, and also we were able to get video footage today of Ukrainian drones at sea conducting MLRS barrages on Russian secure sites within the area of the Crimean coast. A lot has gone on over the past 24 hours, not just in Ukraine, but around the world, and something that I would have to be quite honest with y'all, if it does happen, it's way ahead of when I thought it would ever happen by a factor of years. But that brings us directly not into Ukraine. That actually brings us immediately into the area of Taiwan, as we have been getting major news over the past 24 hours that Chinese war games have begun with dozens of warships, incredibly large warships, mind you, and not only that, a very large amount of aircraft have been present directly along the territorial waters of Taiwan, and this is the largest armed force action that we have seen by the People's Republic of China since August of 2022. And this time, the rhetoric that the People's Republic of China is saying is far more violent and far more clear in its ambitions than it ever has been in the past. Starting off with our first bit of news, we were able to hear that just this morning, Chinese forces had surrounded Taiwan's territorial waters. We were able to get a map of this right here. This is a maritime map showing the area around the island of Taiwan, which we can see right here. We can also see the mainland of China, and then we can see an estimated spread of naval assets in the region and also air power as well. We can see that most Chinese air power is within the northern to southern areas of Taiwan on its western seaboard, while there is no air activity present on the eastern seaboard due to its distance away from the area of the People's Republic of China and most likely out of range of aerial refueling tankers, or the Chinese really didn't want to conduct those sorts of actions because it would be largely inefficient. We did also get to see that apparently there were several AWACS aircraft that were airborne today as well. These were highlighted on the map that we could see up here in the northern area, kind of in the Sea of Japan, I believe, and let me make sure that I'm correct with that. That would actually be the East China Sea. We're able to see some AWACS in the East China Sea, and we're also able to see that apparently some AWACS aircraft were also airborne near to the area of mainland China, just north of Guangzhou Port. At the exact same time, we also saw that dozens of Chinese naval warships were surrounding the territorial waters, literally on its very barrier, around the entirety of the island, from north, south, east, and west, making it appear that while this is at the moment being called a war game, this could easily transform into being a blockade of Taiwan's skies and seas to outside access, meaning that this would most likely be the beginning of a war if this war game was to change into a hostile action against Taiwan. Also, on top of that, we were able to get a lot of additional information on the diplomatic sphere that is showing that this war game is a lot more concerning than it ever has been before at any other point in history. Moving on into our first bit of news from the Taiwanese government, we were able to hear that Taiwan started to put their troops on high alert. We have always seen that there has been a Taiwanese response to Chinese actions within the area. It's just that usually they're not putting their entire force on high alert. And that is something that we noted today, is that the entirety of the Taiwanese armed forces, or the Republic of China's armed forces, were put on high alert due to Chinese actions around the island. At the exact same time, we were also able to hear that the Japanese made a statement of support early on in the day for the Taiwanese, saying that they would back them up in any kind of an incursion or altercation with the People's Republic of China, also known as mainland China. And the Chinese ambassador to Japan immediately came out with a very calm and very diplomatic statement. Wu Jinghao said in the statement that Japan made about Taiwan that the Japanese will be dragged into a fiery hell. We were able to get from this that apparently the statements, or at least the stance of the Communist Chinese on the mainland, is very aggressive at this point, and it appears that they are diplomatically trying to make sure that everyone in the region understands this may be it. And this is something that we've very rarely seen before. We have seen that the Chinese have given, I guess you could say, stern warnings, if you want to call them that, or very choicely worded letters to nations in the region that would want to support Taiwan. But we have never seen them literally say that a country will burn in a fiery hell because they would side with the Taiwanese. That is a fairly new kind of a statement, and it's a incredibly hostile statement at that. We've never seen anything like that before, at least in recent history, from the People's Republic of China. At the exact
Kind of
same...
weird to see that as well, considering that China knows that Japan is allied with the West and also the United States. It's like, how do they think they're going to get away with threatening them like that? And then if they were actually follow through with their threat, if they, for example, moved on Taiwan and Japan stepped in to help, it's like you're going to be basically going to war with us in the West, to my understanding.
Pretty much they would be. And I think it's absolutely insane that they would get this hostile and vehement. But to give you all a little bit of an extra idea about what the Chinese are saying and doing, they're pretty much trying to make a claim that that Taiwan is their island, the Communist Chinese island. That's their claim. And what they want to do is, quote unquote, reunify the island with the mainland. And it's a very complicated thing to explain why in the world they're using that kind of terminology and wordage, because it actually goes all the way back to the very end of World War II, when the Republic of China, which everyone calls Taiwan nowadays, controlled the entirety of China. The entire thing, including the mainland, was run by what is modern-day Taiwan. And at China, this area up here that looks kind of cool, that's just the way I always remember it, they gave this area to the Communist Chinese, run by Mao Zedong. And he ended up running a civil war from 1945 to 1949, which would end up seeing that the Communist Chinese would defeat the Republic of China on the mainland, and then the Republic of China was practically forced into exile onto the island of Taiwan. That's why the official name of the island of Taiwan, or the country of Taiwan, is the Republic of China and not Taiwan. It's because they are actually China. And the Taiwanese actually claim that all of China is theirs, including the Communist Chinese mainland. They claim that that is theirs, and the Communist Chinese are wrongfully controlling this area. At the exact same time, the Communist Chinese claim that the island of Taiwan is theirs, and that the capitalist or more so democratic government that exists on the island is an illegitimate one, and the true government of China is the communist government. That's why you'll never see that these countries are saying that they want to invade and conquer the other. The wordage is always reunification, much like North and South Korea use in their wordage of how in the world they deal with each other. It's always talking about reunification. The Chinese talk about it the exact same way, and the Chinese said today that peaceful reunification will never be possible. They will have to conduct an actual war and an invasion of the island of Taiwan to be able to, quote unquote, successfully reunify the island with the mainland and stop the independent separatists from trying to draw Taiwan away from the rest of mainland China. That is the actual claim that the Chinese made today. Does it sound crazy? Yes, of course it sounds crazy. Does it sound like something that would cause great concern to the United States? That is also true as well, because we were able to hear that U.S. forces in Taiwan have been placed on high alert as well. And this is according to the direct report that we were able to get due to the Chinese training exercises. And once again, I want y'all to keep in mind that while these are being called training exercises, these are the largest and most aggressive training exercises that have been seen since August of 2022. And the verbiage, and well, really more so the wordage that the Communist Chinese are using while conducting this war game is more hostile than it ever has been in the past, at least within the recent decades. Moving on from that, we were able to also see a picture of a People's Republic of China vessel and a Republic of China vessel having a standoff in the Taiwan Strait. This was actually a picture from a Republic of China vessel. Unfortunately, we do not know the size of the ship, but we can see a Coast Guard vessel of Taiwan facing down a Type 54 frigate of the People's Republic of China's Navy, or the People's Liberation Army Navy. And let me see if I can really quickly find y'all a picture of a Type 54 destroyer. And let me go right over here, Type 54 destroyer. And it's actually a frigate, correction. But nevertheless, this is what that vessel looks like up close. These are not small vessels. And I've seen a lot of people trying to downplay this today and say, well, maybe the Chinese are only conducting a smaller war game and they're only surrounding them to cause a lot of panic around the world for no reason, and it's a whole bunch of smaller ships. These frigates are some of the larger ones that are in the Chinese Navy as far as their combat vessel fleet goes. And to see these in the Taiwan Strait, and not only so close to territorial waters that it is literally visible from inside of the territorial waters of Taiwan, that is something that is incredibly concerning. And it is starting to show that things are heating up greatly, and that the Chinese actually do have a bit of firepower behind them. These ships also are not just roving around and not really having an impact. The potential impact of Type 54 frigates or any other vessels of the People's Liberation Army Navy within the area is incredibly severe. These vessels can create an air defense perimeter around them a lot like a roaming S-400 anti-air defense battery would be able to. They are able to project a massive anti-air field of about 100 miles from each warship. And not only that, they are also able to conduct anti-ship operations and anti-submarine operations, meaning that if the People's Republic of China went to war right now, they have effectively created a perimeter around the entirety of Taiwan that will completely cut them off from any access to trade routes by sea, any access to any aircraft coming into Taiwan to resupply the island. They would be completely cut off until the Taiwanese were able to find a way to destroy or break through a part of the Chinese Navy that would be along the eastern seaboard. So at the moment, this is incredibly serious, and this situation is one that we can only say would be extremely strenuous or dangerous for the Republic of China. Moving on from that and into our next bit of news, we were also able to hear from the Ministry of Defense of the Republic of China, which we can see right here, the Ministry of National Defense, Republic of China, that 50 Chinese aircraft, People's Liberation Army aircraft of various types, including the KJ-500, and let me make sure to pull this one up for y'all. The KJ-500 right here, which is an AWACS aircraft, and we were able to see these right here. That's what a Chinese AWACS looks like. It looks like its nose is drooping from snorting too much crack, but then again, Hot Dog Man looks a lot like that, so, you know, no real difference there. But beyond that, this thing is an AWACS aircraft, and these are incredibly expensive. Even this one that looks like, honestly, like an Antonov 22 that's been modified a good bit. These things are fairly expensive to field and operate for the People's Republic of China. And the fact that they have these up in the air is showing that this war game is touching every single base, because to conduct air operations successfully, one would need an AWACS aircraft to be able to do it. And we see that they had several of these airborne today. They also had several other aircraft, specific mentions by the Republic of China, also called Taiwan, were Su-30s, which we've seen a lot in the war in Ukraine, and also J-16s. And let me see if I can find y'all a picture of the J-16. As well, because y'all will actually know this one incredibly well. The J-16 is actually the Chinese version of the Su-27, and we've also seen these an incredibly high amount. Actually, sorry, correction, I believe these are actually the Chinese version of the MiG-29. Let me make sure to verify that. Let's see here. No. Actually, it is, in fact, their variant of the Su-27. So I got it right the first time. I don't know why I second-guessed myself, but this is the Chinese version of the Su-27. These aircraft have been spotted around the area, and of course, these are very limited in their abilities to conduct air-to-ground operations, but their air-to-air potency is quite high, and they would be able to create a screen around the Navy and make sure that the Taiwanese anti-ship defense systems would not be as successful as interdicting or destroying Chinese naval efforts within the strait or within the eastern coast of Taiwan. Not only that, but we were also able to hear, closer to the mainland, that apparently Chinese naval preparations have been underway for quite some time, and we were able to see a little bit of video footage of this today, published by the Chinese themselves. Here is some of the video showing a Type 54 frigate, and also a whole bunch of the drills that are being conducted as a part of the military exercise, quote-unquote. But we see the Type 54 frigate on the move right here. You see them showing the bow of the frigate. We can also see them showing one of the J-16s getting ready for flight. Also, why in the world did they paint the, like, military buildings at this base like a stupid camo pattern? Like, it's not really like they are going to be moving around or anything. It's like, why in the world are they in camo? That makes no sense.
Also, they put the building in camo, and yet they put the gold lettering on top of it. That ruined the whole camouflage effect.
I'm not gonna lie, that shit's stupid. But anyways, the whole thing was stupid. We now see the pilot wearing a camouflaged G-suit. What in the world is up with the Chinese in camouflage, man? Like, they have a uncanny obsession with it, because why would a pilot's jumpsuit need a camo pattern on it? And also, why would it need to look like vomit? Like, that color I don't even think is natural anywhere in the world. Where in the world would that be usable? But anyways,
they went on Alibaba and they typed in military-looking pilot outfit, and that's the first thing that came up, and they ordered the max quantity.
Dude, they just said pilot costume, and this was the end. They went, get 20. But we see the pilot getting in. We now see the J-16 on its way out. Now we're going to be muting this part
This
because
is a child.
Pretty much. But now, getting to the bridge of the Type 54 frigate that this was filmed on, we can now see, in a second, they're conducting some drills aboard the ship. It appears that they're putting the ship on red alert in this clip, but we can see the flag of the People's Republic of China right up there. We can see that the ship's now been shifted to red alert, and you're about to see a whole bunch of guys running around almost like in a choreographed sequence to make it look like they got everything going. So we can see them running down the stairs, one after the other, running past the camera, one after the other.
Man, this is comical. This is their state media propaganda video?
Yes, it is. I'm not even
kidding. Man, they're trying to compete with the Russians for the cringiest propaganda videos on the market.
And then they get down. Dude, look at this guy. This guy is closest to the camera. Laser beam focused, man. Look at him. Look at him. Dude, he didn't even move. Like, he just sat down and turned into a statue.
It was like trying to hold in a laugh.
And that's the end of the clip, but that's showing a little bit of the Chinese naval drills from their end. Meanwhile, we were also able to get an additional bit of news from the Republic of China, actually, interestingly enough, from the Ministry of Defense of the Republic of China, showing some of their actions. First off, we got to see a Mirage 2000, a very nice French aircraft, in operation. Then we were able to see one of their air defense batteries being set up for potential use. Of course, the location is unknown. We were also able to see a picture from a Republic of China vessel facing down one of the Type 54 frigates that was in the Strait of Taiwan. And then finally, in our last little clip, we were actually able to see an up-close video of the Type 54 frigate. That's pretty close. I would say that that's at least a mile away, maybe a little bit less than that, but that is how close People's Republic of China and Republic of China vessels got to each other today. But nevertheless, a very concerning standoff at the moment in this area. And moving on from that, we also have one additional bit of news to show y'all out of the area of the Hualien Air Base in eastern Taiwan. And I'll actually be showing y'all this airport right here. So here's Hualien, here is the airport, and I believe this is also yes, this is the Air Force Base as well, because you can actually see the hangars here, and you can also see a couple of F-5 Tiger Sharks out on the runway as well. But we were able to see here that some F-16s were getting prepared for flight out of Hualien Air Base today. We were able to see two F-16s inside of their protected shelter being mounted with AIM-9Xs and AIM-120 AMRAAMs. This is showing that these F-16s are being specifically outfitted for air-to-air operations, most likely to start engaging with the vanguard of the Chinese Air Force that was surrounding the island. At this moment, from what we know, the island of Taiwan is still surrounded by the Chinese Navy and Air Force, and currently the situation is incredibly dire. We do not know if a war will begin, but we have started to hear that rumors are beginning to circle that a Chinese invasion will begin by early June. Of course, rumors are rumors and are never confirmed or never believed to be true on this channel, so we are not going to confirm whether an invasion will begin or not. All we can say at the moment is that the situation is incredibly severe, far more severe than we've seen in the past, and the likelihood of invasion is much greater now than it ever has been, at least over the course of the war in Ukraine. But nevertheless,
Certainly seems possible now because, you know, when Russia invaded Ukraine, Russia had started out doing a training exercise where they sent all their soldiers to basically hoard around the border of Ukraine on the Russian side, and then sooner or later they invaded. So it's not too far-fetched to say that a training exercise can be a pretext for a whole-on invasion.
That is true. And that is something that we do have to keep in mind here is that the Russians did start off their invasion as a training exercise, and then it's turned into a full-blown war over the past 820 days. It's not entirely out of the question that a war could begin with Taiwan, and it could be disguised that the beginning of it was a military exercise to make sure that forces could move into position and then conduct their preemptive attacks on Taiwan. But nevertheless, a lot of people have been talking about this in the chat, and a lot of people have been talking about this around the world today, about what the future of Taiwan may be and if there will be a war in the Taiwan Strait. A lot of people have been saying that maybe China is getting prepared to invade right now. Some others are saying that China is practicing for a little bit later down the road, and some people are saying that the Chinese are only saber rattling and attempting to strike fear in their rivals within this area, including Taiwan, Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, Vietnam, and the United States, and possibly show them that the Chinese mean business. But we have seen everyone say literally every single opinion in the chat. And Matthew, what are people thinking, and what are you thinking about this as well?
So it looks like about 37% of the audience says that China is preparing to invade right now, and it looks like about 30% said China is simply practicing for later, and 26% said that China is simply saber rattling. And on this one, like the Enforcer kind of said, it's really hard to tell exactly what is going to happen here. One thing is clear, though. China has ramped it up to a level which we haven't really seen before. They've encircled the entire island of Taiwan, and they've started issuing very bold threats toward Western allies such as Japan. So that is quite a bold step to take, and one we haven't seen before. So while I'm not really ready to say that they're preparing to invade right now, because of course this could simply be a training exercise, like China sort of selling that to the public, or it could be, just like the Russians did in Ukraine, it could be a pretext for invasion, which could start here within a week or two. We don't really know, and you really can't say until we know any some further details. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I'd have to remain undecided at the moment. This is a very tense situation. It does appear that it's closer to invasion now than it ever has been. But once again, sometimes things like this happen, and the Chinese just attempt to cause a lot of fear and a great scare that an invasion of the island will finally happen, but then it never comes around. So it could go that way, or it could go that the Chinese are legitimately serious about finally invading the island and are planning on doing that incredibly soon. It's just that we never really know, and I don't want to make a statement either way because we have a 50-50 chance of being completely wrong, and I don't want to try and crystal ball and act like that we're just undeniable Einstein geniuses, because no one knows how this will go. The Chinese are the only people in the world at this moment that probably have a really good idea of how things will turn out. The second best would be the United States Department of Defense, as they probably have a large amount of intelligence that would lead them to believe whether something would happen or not. And that means that over the next few days, we will have to carefully observe the U.S. naval actions within the area and see if those are starting to show that something serious may be happening with Taiwan. If we see that U.S. forces in the entire region are put on high alert, that most likely means that there will be an imminent invasion of the island. If we see that some forces near to the island, like we see right now, are put on high alert, but that's it, that means that this is probably just a drill and nothing far more serious. But still, at the moment, this is something that we will be keeping a very close eye on, because this is one of the closest times that we've seen the island get close to war. And many of y'all will know that I'm not really a big fan of tooting that whistle out on the internet. A lot of people are always fear-mongering and making it sound like wars are always about to happen everywhere around the world. But in the instance of Taiwan, I'm always trying to make sure that we kind of downplay a little bit of what's going on there, because usually there is a decent amount of People's Liberation Army and Air Force activity around the island. But this level that we're seeing today is unprecedented. I will say that after observing what's been going on in the Taiwan Strait for at least a year now, on and off in the background, this number of vessels and this number of aircraft, along with the strongly worded statements that the Chinese government is making, is something that we've never seen before over the course of the I guess you could say, rising tensions. So right now, it is the closest that we've ever seen this this situation boil over into war. So as far as that goes.
Another possibility as well is Putin just got done meeting with Xi Jinping a short while ago, and we really don't know what was discussed, because they like to keep that kind of stuff private. They don't like to really leak that out to the press. It could have been discussed maybe that this is some sort of distraction that'll get the West sort of diverting their attention back to Taiwan a little bit and concern everyone enough to sort of redirect the West over there to look toward that region instead of looking at what's happening inside of Ukraine. That could be another reason for this. If they don't invade, that's very likely, actually, in my opinion. They might just be trying to redirect attention.
And I would say that is true. They may be trying to redirect attention away from Ukraine, but we never really know for sure. And we will be keeping as best an eye as possible on this. And also, I see some people saying in the chat that some people are saying that the United States conducts drills around the coast of China all the time. No, we do not. Like, we do not do that at all, because the South China Sea is heavily contended. Usually we'll pass a vessel, like we passed an Arleigh Burke class destroyer through the middle of the Taiwan Strait in international waters, but we did not conduct any military exercises on close to Chinese territorial waters. We have never done that. And let me make sure that I'm saying that correctly. U.S. drills near China. And let's see if we can find any. Let's see here. And let's see. America and Filipino forces launched their largest combat exercises in years in the disputed South China Sea. But let me make sure that we know exactly where that was in the South China Sea. And so let's see here. So that was inside of Filipino waters and international waters within the South China Sea, closer to the Philippines than it was to China. But China argues that they control the entirety of the South China Sea, including the Philippines' territorial waters in that area. So that would be considered provocative by the Chinese, but that would not be us conducting a military exercise literally right off Hong Kong and Guangzhou. That would not be the case. But with that, I hope that does address that at least the best I can, taking a quick look, because to make it sound like America is out there just conducting military drills around China, and this is fair, not the case. Because we don't conduct military drills where we surround the entire People's Republic of China and then start to go through the motions of bombing them. That is something that we don't really do, and would be pretty unprecedented as a historical basis. But with that, that is all of the news that we have right now on what's going on inside of the Taiwan Strait, what's going on with the People's Republic of China, and what's going on in East Asia. We will be making sure to keep y'all as updated as possible as the situation continues to evolve, much like we have with the Middle East. And if anything kicks off in a major form again, we will make sure to circle back to this either in video form or on live stream, and make sure to cover this for all of y'all when anything new or major breaks out. But of course, I also have to thank everyone for watching our video that we put out on this today earlier. Usually, very rarely do we ever move on from the Ukraine war, because the Ukraine war is one of the largest and most important events happening on a day-by-day basis around the world. But whenever there's an event that kind of pops up on the radar that's a little bit more important, it is always incredible to see that so many of y'all are invested in the way we cover news, to even find news from different areas of the world, including East Asia and also the Middle East, to be interesting and worthwhile watching. And I got to thank y'all for that, because we were actually a little bit concerned, because we have a huge passion behind the scenes for news from around the world. But we're always a little bit concerned that when we try and share that passion with all of y'all of just covering news in general, maybe sometimes y'all might not want to watch it. But crazily enough, this is one of the best videos that we've made that came out today, as far as the metrics are showing, and we thank y'all greatly for enjoying the video. But moving on from that and out of the area of East Asia, it's now time for us to move on into the war in Ukraine, because there has been a lot going on over here as well. Today was really a chock-full day as far as the action went. We were able to hear that the Ukrainians massively struck Crimea. Russian forces are taking unbelievable losses and are practically being bled dry in Kharkiv. We were able to hear that a major Russian general was arrested again on bribery charges, another victim of the purge, and we've also been able to see that decent amounts of combat action have been occurring deeper behind the lines. And not only that, we also got to see that a major ATACMS launch occurred near the area of Kherson today. Also, really quickly, before we move into the rest of the news, I just want to clarify something. Some of y'all will notice the map looks different. I actually removed the liberated areas from the map because it's been so long since those areas have been liberated. It kind of clutters up the map and makes it a little bit more difficult to read. So we've decided to remove the liberated areas from the map and instead just show the active front lines highlighted in red. But moving on from that and into Moscow, we were able to hear the major news that another top Russian official, another top Russian general, has been arrested by the Russian government and is being held on charges of bribery. That is something that is pretty shocking. I unfortunately wasn't able to get a lot more information about the exact name of the general. I saw his picture, but sadly I was never able to get the name. So the best we have is that another top military general has been arrested, just like Ivan Popov, for charges of bribes, and it is starting to show that that the purge is beginning to expand to be larger and larger and attack and take out more higher officials in the Russian government. This is starting to lead us to believe that there is a major issue with loyalty inside of the government's ranks, or really the military's ranks, and Putin is trying to quash this before it becomes too much of a threat to the government and to his reign inside of Russia. This is something that we will keep an eye on. We don't really know a lot of details about it at the moment, but we did want to make sure to get the news out there that another major official has been purged, and it does seem as though things are getting pretty serious. But one thing that's kind of interesting about this is that this guy was actually inside of Eastern Russia, with the guy who I understand was arrested. Still don't have the name, but I was able to get that he was a general and most likely in the area of Eastern Russia, which kind of takes us back to the area of Japan, because a lot of people have been talking about Japan's statement today about how they'll help defend Taiwan and China, and threaten, and the Chinese actually threatened, like we were talking about earlier, to put Japan in a fiery hell. And a lot of people have been putting in their 2 bits. Some people are saying, fiery hell, didn't America do that to them twice in World War II? Some other people are saying, nah, America would come and save the day. Some people would say that China would lose to Japan, like it would be like World War II all over again. Some other people are saying that China would squash Japan, and some people are unsure and undecided about that and don't really know what way to make of this. They just know that it's a pretty serious instance. That's all they can get out of it. But nevertheless, Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
So on this one, it looks like about 54% of the people said Japan would be saved by the Allies, and it looks like about 29% said China would lose to Japan, and another 9% said China would absolutely squash Japan. And on this one, I think Japan would put up a very good fight. Japan has a very competent military. It's probably more competent than the Chinese military, in my opinion, but it's not the same size, and that's the problem there. China does have a bit of a size advantage. I'm not sure exactly what the number is, but they have some sort of advantage over them. And I think Japan would ultimately have to be saved by the Allies, which is perfectly fine. Japan's not on their own. We are allies with them, after all, so we're happy to save them. But if it came down to Japan and China duking it out 1-on-1, I think China would probably win that. So the Allies would have to step in. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my opinion, I would believe that the Japanese would probably bode somewhat okay. And let me make sure to get some information on the Japanese Navy really quickly, because we have to remember that this conflict wouldn't be one where the armies were going head-to-head, so army size initially would never really matter for any side, including Taiwan, the Communist Chinese, the Japanese, or even the South Koreans, which might get involved as well at some point. It would all be about the navies and air forces of these countries. And from what we can tell, oh, wow, that's a nice picture. I'll be showing y'all that in a minute. But let me see here if I can get a fleet composition of the Chinese. So, I'm sorry, the Japanese, correction. So let me see here. Can we actually get, like, the list of Japanese ships? I mean, is that hard? Is that this difficult? So here we go. So the list of active Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force ships. I was about to say Japanese, but it's actually just Japan. So, first off, we have the Oyashio class submarines. Wait a minute. Oh, hold up. Let me see. So these are diesel electric, but hang on. Let me go see what these are. Let's see. Larger than... I swear, man, that these are like German like submarines that were sold to the Japanese. Something about their shape makes me think that, but apparently not. But nevertheless, they have, let's see, 24 submarines in service. A whopper, actually. That's actually an incredibly large amount for Japan. And let's compare that to the People's Liberation Army Navy. And let me go type that in. Army, Navy, ships. And let me go get that really quickly. And let's go to the list of ships of the People's Liberation Army Navy. And so they have quite a decent number of submarines. I'd actually believe that they whop the Japanese by a very large amount, an unbelievable amount, actually, because their list, well, hang on, these are in reserve, but a lot of them are still active. I mean, loads of them are, because I was trying to get a good metric here. I was like, okay, so I looked at this, and I was like, oh, well, that's not that bad. And then I looked at these, and I was like, oh, that's not that bad. And then we got to the attack submarines, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on. So China does have an incredibly large number of submarines. Let me see if we can actually get a specific number. Let's see. So let's see here. How many do they have? Let's see here. operates a fleet of 66 submarines. Japan has 24. So Japan would be outnumbered in the submarine forces almost 3-1. But moving on, well, one thing I will put out on that is that while they may be outnumbered 3-1, let me make sure that I'm getting this correct, at least in my mind. Okay, so this is a Type 39, and let's see, what about the Type 35? Because these are oh. Oh yeah, these wouldn't stand a chance really, because these are quite outdated. And let me see here. These are an updated Kilo class, which were developed by the Russians. And so I would largely be honest with y'all. These might not bode too well, depending on how modern they are. Well, these have been commissioned from 1998 to the present day. What about these? The Yashio class. So these are newer, just by a tiny margin. But I would suspect that the Japanese submarines would do better due to probably higher trained crews, and not only that, probably a slight technological advantage, possibly. So they might be able to do better in that regard. But let's see here. The surface fleet of Japan versus the surface fleet of China. So let's see here. The principal surface combatants, China has 2 active aircraft carriers at the moment. There's a third that is in sea trials. Japan actually has technically 2 LHDs, or kind of aircraft carriers, sort of. But here's one of them. It's a Hyuga class. This is able to carry, and let's see how many aircraft this thing can carry. It can carry 18 aircraft. So interestingly enough, as far as aircraft carriers go, Japan and China are head to head. Like, they have the same number of aircraft carriers, and not only that, the same number of aircraft that can be carried on both classes. The I believe the Liaoying class of this, well, it's a, let's see, the Fujian class, which is a modified Kuznetsov, it can carry about 16 to 17 aircraft. So going off of that, the Japanese and the Chinese are par to par on that metric. The Japanese,
Now, I know you're looking at the Navy right here, by the way. But what are the capabilities, if you know right offhand, of the Chinese to simply launch a mass missile attack from the Chinese mainland on Japan? Because to me, that would seem like probably the bigger threat.
I wouldn't actually know that off the top of my head. That we would probably have to look at the People's Liberation Army and figure out what kind of ballistic missile launchers they have, and also what kind of missiles could be fired by aircraft. So that would be pretty hard to come up with at the moment. That would actually take a lot of reading and researching to try and figure out an exact number, or even a close approximate. But I would assume, you know what, the best way that we'd be able to tell is how many defense systems does the Japanese ground self-defense force have when it comes to, let's see, the Japanese army. We'll just type that in right here, and that ought to get us right here. So let's go here, and let's see, the Japanese ground self-defense force, and let's go look at the equipment, because we'll be able to get an idea if they can defend themselves based off of the amount of defense equipment that they have. But let's see here. Oh, dude, I want one. Like, that actually looks really cool. I was like, that looks cool. I want one. But let's
It's
see.
Chinese made though. Is it Japanese made?
Japanese made, man. This is made by like Hoa Heavy Industries or something like that. These are really cool.
If it's made by Japan, you know it's good quality.
Man, I just don't want one of those South Korean like K2 rifles. Those things are ugly. Yuck. But anyways, ew, yuck. But let's see. Let's go to the air defense systems. They actually have a very light complement of armored vehicles. But you know, when I say light complement, it's not a wide variety of them. They have 340 heavy main battle tanks, and then 111 medium-sized main battle tanks in the Type 10, which is a very good number. We also were able to see that, and let me see here. Let me make sure to try and make this correct. And so let's see here. Looking around, trying to find the air defense systems. Here we go, air defense. So they have Type 81 short-range surface-to-air. These wouldn't matter. These wouldn't matter. These wouldn't matter. So they have Hawks, and they have Type 3 medium-range surface-to-air missile systems as well. What is the range on this? 50 kilometers or more. So it has a somewhat okay range. And then they also have some coastal defense systems as well, surface-to-ship missiles. But to be quite honest, they don't really have a large number of air defense systems, or at least incredibly advanced ones. It seems as though they might be a little bit light on that, and that could end up posing some problems for Japan going on into the future, considering that air defense is such an important part of modern warfare, and considering that they have somewhat outdated Hawks and some Type 3 medium-range air defense systems, that isn't that good, I'll be entirely honest. They also have...
Also, another catch is, remember when North Korea was launching off their ballistic missiles toward the Sea of Japan, Japan had a very hard time tracking those incoming missiles. Like at one point, they had lost track of it. I think they did that twice, actually. And I hope they fixed the problem, but their tracking systems needed some help last time we saw those in action.
That is true, and hopefully the Japanese are trying to improve or fix on that, but also, just in case if there was a last line of defense that would be needed, they do have 52 Type 87s, which are very similar to the Gepard from Germany. It's just a Japanese variant of it, and it can do about the same. It has almost the same kind of munitions, the same kind of guns, almost everything's identical about it except for the turret and hull build. But beyond that, they could use these as well for very short-range air defense. We have seen Gepards really end up proving themselves to be wildly successful in an air defense role, even against cruise and ballistic missiles, so these could be used as well. But in reality, the Japanese are a little bit light on defense, so they may end up kind of going blow for blow with the Chinese for a little bit and probably would require U.S. assistance. But then again, Japan is the third largest economy in the world, only beat by China and the United States. So if anything was to go down, they probably would be in pretty okay shape just by spending power. But with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. But before we move on even from that, a lot of people have been talking about if Japan brought out Godzilla, would this be a war crime? And a lot of people have been weighing in on this one, interestingly enough. 1,200 of y'all have answered this. And I gotta ask, why? Why? Matthew just texted me. He was like, poll. And I was like, okay. And then I looked at it, and I got whiplash. I just had to read it out of shock. But a lot of people are actually saying no. Matthew, guide us through this poll and tell us what people are thinking about it.
All right, so if Japan were to bring out Godzilla, which I'm not sure if they would do, would it be a war crime? 78% said no, and 22% said yes. There's really not much discussion to be had on this. Godzilla is not a war criminal, and he's free to come out whenever he wants. But Enforcer, what say you?
Godzilla, may God bless whoever comes up against Godzilla. It's going to be bad. But beyond that, I hope that does address that well. I have no, Matthew, that actually threw me for, serious whiplash, because I was going, over, serious analysis, and you're like, poll. I was like, cool. And then I was like, what? I was like, what the hell? Dude, I almost turned to that guy. I was like, stop reading! So what the hell is this? But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, it is time for us to move on out of Japan and really the East Asian area, and time for us to move back into Ukraine after we were talking about the big purge that happened inside of Russia. It also appears that a radio tower was purged from the Smolensk Oblast by some partisans. And so here is the clip. Is that piss or is it gasoline? The answer, you wouldn't believe.
Getting showered.
Russians hate this guy. See how he turned this piss into a flammable weapon with one simple trick. Whoa! Whoa, man, what an edit.
I drank gasoline, I guess.
Man, when you drink vodka your entire life and you piss on something, it's flammable, man. It's like gas. But that's the end of the clip, and very nice to see they're able to knock out a radio tower. Moving on from that and into Kursk, we also got to see that an electrical substation was hit inside of Kursk by a drone. And there we go, dead on the nail. And someone said, Godzilla is a Japanese citizen. He is. Didn't you see that commercial where everyone was going crazy, and then the Japanese anthem started playing and Godzilla actually stood for the anthem? Godzilla is a patriot, y'all. He doesn't destroy Japan because he hates Japan. He destroys Japan to bring forward more common sense policies in the Japanese government. But with that, that's the end of the clip, and nice to see they were able to knock out that substation. Moving on from that and on into the area of the location unknowns, which were very sparse today, we were able to see an M142 HIMARS in waiting. Look at that bullpup, though. That is actually really cool looking.
That's pretty clean.
And it takes AK mags. Pretty neat.
Very neat.
And then there's the HIMARS back there in the trees.
Look at that.
Look at
Peeking
that.
around.
Man, it's just kind of snooping around out there, man. It's going, aw, man.
Oh no, man. He's out here sniffing people too.
I'm lurking in the bushes. I'm shirtless. Aw, man.
Oh dear God.
Oh, that was a war crime. But with that, that's the end of that little picture right there. Moving on from that, we also got to hear the Russian casualty report over the past 24 hours. And great, googly moogly.
Damn, you know what this means? Like these numbers right here, 1,300 troops, 40 artillery, like tanks being lost left and right. You know what this means?
What does it mean?
It means Russia's taking a slamming run, Kharkiv. That's what it means.
Man, that's exactly what it means. But, oh, great heavens! 1,330 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 27 APCs being destroyed, 71 supply trucks being knocked out, 11 main battle tanks also biting the dust, along with 40 artillery systems, 45 drones, 1 aircraft, 1 cruise missile, 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, and 4 Bobcat skid steers. Today has just been one of those days that when you look at it, all together, it was a good day. And I just gotta say that it is insane. And also, I like Alan Watts over here setting it straight. Russian KIA is about 50,000. Ukrainian killed in action is about 700,000, with no sources included. This guy knows what he's talking about, and I have a feeling that he doesn't need sources because he is the ultimate fact man almighty. He knows exactly how many soldiers have died just by smelling the air around him. He just knows. In interesting assumption, man. 700,000 Ukrainians wounded and killed. It's like, if that's how good the kill-to-death factor was in the favor of the Russians, how come they haven't won yet? And how come they're not even close to winning at all?
Yeah, really. It's like I guess the Russians just have magical powers all of a sudden, and also it's like what the Ukrainians can take unlimited losses and like keep going. Like how the hell does that work?
Yeah, a country with a third of a population of Russia taking an unbelievable amount of killed higher, and not even including the wounded, because if the wounded were included, this guy, whoever he is, and I have to assume he's clinically insane, is saying that the Ukrainians have taken 1.4, maybe even 1.7 million casualties on a conservative figure, which is insane. That is literally like point. Hell, that's not a point. That's like 3% of the Ukrainian population that's just been wiped out, like on the front lines. It's like they probably don't even have that many people that they could actually recruit in Ukraine to fight in the military. So I'm doubting it. But still, with that, that's the end of that little bit of news right there. Just looking at that comment that really, and also, look at this. Ukraine, oh wait, hang on, I gotta read this one because this one is good. While Russian manpower is increasing, Ukraine is facing a manpower and morale crisis. Every day, Russia is making continued advances on the entire line of contact while the Ukrainian armed forces is retreating. Units are even deserting. Dude, that honestly sounds like Hot Dog Man right here. This guy might be related to him.
He could be. It's like at this point, if anyone believes that Russia is steamrolling Ukraine, then like show me a map and point it out because I haven't seen that literally anywhere.
Me either. And I like how they keep on saying Russia is making continued advances, but I just want to show you all the front line over the past 24 hours. Oh my goodness. Oh, great googly moogly. Is that? No way. No way. Impossible.
They took a street.
Impossible. No, the Ukrainians took a street. The whole front line doesn't move. The only part that moves is the one in favor of Ukraine. Let's look at that again. Okay. I don't know about y'all. Maybe my eyes deceive me, but it doesn't look like any of the front line has moved at all over 24 hours. It looks as though the defensive has been doing incredibly well, and it seems as though that might be an untrue statement. Not that I'm a fact checker or anything, but I would largely not take any kind of statements from someone called Alan Watts to be true. It seems as though they are most likely not true. But beyond that, watch that man be our next person that threatens us with death right there. They'll be like, I'll kill you. And then we'll be like, whoa! Whoa, Nelly!
Whoa, Jack, watch out now. Whoa, Jack, you know what? I've dealt with corn pop and the bad boys. I can deal with anybody.
I gotta tell you, I was in Vietnam. The bombs and the bees. Look, don't make me take you out back and poke you with a rusty stick or something like that. But anyways,
remember also Remember when Corn Pop and the Bad Boys used to go outside with those razors? You know those razors, they'd leave them in the rain barrel, and anyway, you know the thing.
And dude, man, I'm not gonna lie. I'll say this as neutrally as I can, folks. The past 12 years of U.S. presidents is the best way for me to put it. It is comedic gold. Like, I don't know how people can act like it's serious because it is actually hilarious. Like, it is the funniest thing ever. But anyways, getting off of that, and I'm making sure to make that as fair as possible because we're hitting both sides right there. But it is comedy gold. I don't think anyone can deny that. But oh, look, well, we're moving on into worse times. Well, I mean better to better times. But moving on from that, it's time for us to get on into the Kharkiv area and cover what's been going on up here. But before we do, I do want to make sure that we address a couple of questions from the chat because so many of y'all have thrown them in. Samantha, what do we got?
All right, so our first question of the night is going to go to none other than Marius Nor 78, who's been on the channel for a very long time. And a huge shout out to you, Marius, for throwing in that very generous support once again. And he says, do tell all about China and Taiwan, and he threw in a 50.
And thank you so much, Marius Holden, for the support, and I hope I was able to do that news segment justice. Sometimes when we do other news segments, like with Taiwan, I am not as well-versed or well-researched on the current goings-on as I would be on Ukraine, because I have to do that every day for Ukraine, and after a while, you just get a knack for it. But with Taiwan, I'm kind of entering some slightly uncharted waters with that, and so I hope that it did good service tonight, and we were able to cover that incredibly well and get the news out there to all of y'all about what's going on down there, because it is a very tense situation, and hopefully it does not turn out to be worse than what we're expecting at the moment, but of course we always have to prepare for the worst as a precaution. But nevertheless, thank you massively once again, Marius, for being a longtime viewer, an old guard of this channel, and supporting this channel massively tonight. Also, hello to Norway once again. I hope you're having a fun time up there. And thank you so much once again for enjoying this channel so much that you would find it worthwhile to support and help it to keep on running. We are always thankful for that, and I thank you so much once again for your incredible kindness, your incredible support, and also wanting us to tell about China and Taiwan, and I hope we did that incredibly well. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next question here goes to Toadman the First, who threw in a $50 donation, and thank you very much, Toadman the First, for that generous support once again. And he said, Enforcer Matt, if China does invade Taiwan, he said in parentheses, I know Japan, Australia, and the U.S. would support Taiwan, but how will it affect the Ukraine war? And will NATO decide to go to war against Russia or start deploying troops into Ukraine? And if you're asking me in specific, honestly, how do I think it'll affect the Ukraine war? I think it would greatly stretch us thin, meaning the Western support, because the West and all the politicians and leadership in the West are going to think we can no longer afford to support Ukraine in such high numbers like this. Even if it was technically possible, I think they would try to justify reducing support to Ukraine and splitting it between Taiwan and Ukraine. That's my assumption there, but that's just me. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my opinion, I do not think... And really quickly, reread that again so that way I can make sure that I'm saying this properly.
Let's see. He said, if China does invade Taiwan, how will it affect the Ukraine war, and how will NATO decide to go to war against Russia?
I do not think that this will affect the war in Ukraine all too much, at least at the start. Well, you never really know, because it will end up being something that ends up being put to Congress members and senators. And I'm gonna be entirely honest. I listened to one of them talk the other day about Ukraine, and I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, I mean, it wasn't anything bad. I mean, it wasn't that they were bashing Ukraine or anything. It's just that their understanding was very limited, is the best way to put it. And I was listening to it, and I was like, oh my god. I was like, how the hell? But anyways, moving on from that. Logically, it wouldn't affect it much because the war would be at sea and in the air at the onset. It wouldn't really be a lot on the ground, so it wouldn't really affect Ukrainian munitions or anything for that matter, at least at the beginning, because we would not really be fighting a ground war. The United States, honestly, would probably never fight a ground war in this conflict if it actually happened. They probably would end up fighting completely in the seas and the skies, but never on the ground. And so for the large part, U.S. Army equipment such as artillery, ammunition for artillery, and all that stuff, I don't really think that would be affected all too much, at least at the beginning. And also, I do not think that NATO would gung-ho go to war immediately with the Russians. They would probably try and see if they could still remain out of a conflict directly with the Russians and just see if all of it would pass over and be just fine. At least that's what I would think. We never really know, but that would be my assumption of how things would go. But I just don't really think that it would affect us too much. And on top of that, even if it did start to affect us a good bit, I'm sure that the U.S. federal government would start to appropriate resources or shift the economy into a war economy to be able to produce enough equipment and arms to support both fronts, the one in Europe and also the one in East Asia. Because that's what we did in World War II, and I don't think in the modern day we have removed ourselves too far from that mindset to go, oh, you know, 2 wars started, I guess we'll lose them. Like, I don't think we'd ever do that. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least the best in my opinion. And also, another thing that I want to say is someone said, was he poorly educated? Talking about the Congress member. Not like, look, I try and say nice things about everyone I can, and I'm sure that the guy has some kind of sense. Well, you don't have to have sense to be elected, but I would hope that he had sense because he somehow got elected. But listening to the guy talk about it, he pulled out an Institute for the Study of War map, and now some of y'all may know who I'm talking about. And he said, you see, the Russians, when they get their missiles and they shoot them, they fly in Ukraine, and Ukraine can't do nothing back to them, like, at all. And I think that we need to let American weapons bomb the Russians. And I was like, that didn't really come out too well. I was like I was sitting there, I was like, basic things like counter battery, which is a very, very common term. I think it's one of the first ones that I ever learned. I was like, how do you not know that? I was like, you're talking on, war, and you don't know what counter battery is, or, you can't describe like missile launches. Like, missile launches are just missile launches. Like, obviously they're flying into Ukraine. Where else are they going? It was some stuff like that, and I was like, I don't know where they're from, I don't know who they are, but I was still like, that didn't really sound that great. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least on that. And you never know, some people could just end up in instances like that saying we need to stop supporting Ukraine and keep everything for ourselves because now we're in a conflict with the Chinese. So you never really know. And so with that, I hope that does.
In my opinion, if it came down to like multiple different wars starting and the U.S. was concerned we're going to get dragged into a war, the last thing you'd want to do is start cutting off support to our allies because we need them to be able to stay strong so they can help us fight the war. And we don't want to hoard everything for ourselves because if it came down to going into more debt to make sure that our allies can continue fighting or to hoard everything for ourselves and just, say, oh, you're all on your own, we're better off taking on more debt because we can deal with the debt, but we can't deal with being, demolished by the Axis powers. We can't have that happen. So if it comes down to spending money or cowering down, I say spend money.
Yeah, I say spend money as well. I mean, who in the world out there would end up being so cowardly that they would decide to be cowards and lose than spend money? I'd rather spend money and not be a coward. And Matthew, something I was thinking, that translates into something else that might be happening here in the future, because someone else might figure out that while they were trying to be a coward, they might have to end up spending some money, if you know what I mean. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. But thank you so much once again for the support and asking a really good question about what would be happening in the area of East Asia if there was a war to break out there, how that would affect Ukraine. And I hope I was able to answer that fairly well. And so with that, we are on to the last question of this segment, and then we're going to be moving on into the rest of the Ukraine war news.
All right, so this one is going to go to Panama Floyd, who threw in a $50 donation. And a huge shout out to you, Panama, as always, for not only being a channel legend, but for also supporting the channel Big League. And we appreciate it very much. And he put in a 50. And he said, Enforcer, what do you know about whether or not Japan is discussing their whole self-defense part of their post-war constitution? And I know it's a contentious thing for them.
It is actually a contentious thing, but we do know that a while ago they actually revoked the article in the Constitution that made them a purely self-defense force. So while the Japanese self-defense forces are still called that, Japan can conduct preemptive actions or even conduct actions outside of its own waters, which were limitations that were placed on it in the Constitution that was written up during the time of an American occupation of Japan post-World War II. So going off of that, it's entirely likely. In fact, it's probably very possible that the Japanese these days would pose a serious risk to the Chinese due to the limitations in their constitution being removed. And not only that, the Japanese are rapidly trying to grow their naval and air forces, much more so than the army. So going off of that, it's entirely possible they could actually pose some serious issues. But that's really all I know on Japanese remilitarization, is that they revoked the article in their constitution that limited their forces into being defensive only and only operating within the territory of Japan or its waters. We now know that that's been revoked, I believe, a few years ago, and now they're on the path of remilitarizing. Some people find that a little bit scary. Me personally, I don't, because the Japanese are incredibly tied into the American sphere, the Western sphere for the most part, and that means they're not going to become the Empire of Japan of World War II. That will never happen again. They are certainly within our side completely. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And also, let's see, someone said Japan did that because of China. And yes, they did do it because of China, because China was starting to get more aggressive in the area. And people in China, the government in China said, this is getting a little too concerning. We can't be an entirely defensive force with what we see going on out here. This can end up going badly. We need to militarize. And that's why the article was revoked. And I believe someone got it correct. Vari Mandubratis got it right. It was Article 9 of the Japanese Constitution that was revoked. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. But that's about all I know at this point about Japanese remilitarization. But with that, it's now time for us to move on back into the Ukraine war news and up into the area of the Kharkiv front. We were able to see that over the past 24 hours, great googly moogly, the front line didn't move, like, at all. Like, not an inch anywhere. The Russians are stuck. Alexander Sirski came out today and said that, actually. But nevertheless, we got to see a rack firing. And a lot of people are going to say, wow, that's a nice rack. And I'd agree. It's a pretty nice looking rack. And so here's the video. We're going to be muting that, but we can see it firing on the side of the street. And now we can see the MLRS impacts hitting right down range.
Man, I'm telling you, for that thing to do that kind of damage, that's a nice rack.
Man, that's a nice rack right there. Take a look at it. Take a long look at it. Nice. Moving on from that clip and on into our next one in the area, the only other one we got to see that the Russians are dropping some kind of mines in the area, even inside of Ukrainian trenches that are wire activated. So if you step on the wire, it may explode. Very dangerous kind of a mine, and that's why the Russians are using it. So now Ukrainians have to be more attentive as ever to the ground and make sure not to step on anything like a small anti-personnel mine like these are. Moving on from that, absolutely nothing has happened in this area. According to Alexander Sirski, Russian forces have now gotten bogged down in the fighting occurring inside of the area of Vovchansk. From what we know, that most likely will stay that way for an incredibly long time. We will probably not see any major changes or shifts happening over the next few days or weeks. That's what we would believe, and we're going to be keeping an eye on that. And also, another thing that I was just thinking, Matthew, if a certain terrorist force inside of the Philippines got their hands on that specific MLRS that the Ukrainians were using in Kharkiv, wouldn't that mean that it's a milk? Wait a minute, no, I got it wrong. Milk rack.
Milk rack. Interesting. I mean, I guess you could say that. I don't know if you'd want to say that, but you could.
Well, you could. Like, if they had that rocket system, you could certainly say that. You could say that it's a MILF rack firing. But anyways, with that, we're now moving on out of the area of Kharkiv and on into the area of Raivorodika, where we were able to see that the Ukrainians were firing some artillery, specifically an FH-70 Italian howitzer at the Russians. Oh, no. And we're muting that, but we can see them loading up that piece. Chat's going wild. But we can see them getting ready to fire the gun. We can see them firing it right here. And there goes the gun. And now they're going to get back to reloading it again. And that's the end of the clip, but showing a little bit of artillery action happening in the area. Of course, absolutely no frontline changes to account for. Meanwhile, around the area of Biloorivka, where we saw an okay amount of frontline action today, frontline did not change. The Russians got obliterated, a lot of them got lost, a lot of them got killed, and that was really the end of the story for those Russians out there in those fields. But we were able to see some signs of this failed Russian offensive that happened today. We're going to mute that, but we can see the ruin and debris of this failed Russian offensive lying around in the fields, surrounded by the white sands near to Bielorivka, which kind of look like snow, and would kind of make you think that this happened earlier in the year, but that's actually sand.
And that's not the white sands of Dover. Trust me. Trust me, bro.
Oh, governor. Man,
Have you ever seen such destruction like this, mate? This is a hell of a destruction right here, I'm telling you.
Man, I'm telling you, mate. I'm telling you, Matthew, I'm never drinking an espresso again before the stream. I'm already, like, completely spent. Like, it wasn't enough caffeine.
That's what happens. That's what happens when you fill your gut with that rot gut cold brew, like a whole 12 ounces of it for a solid year. And then you get back on a normal shot of espresso and you're like, meh, child's play.
Man, this shit ain't nothing to me. Like, I'm sitting here, I'm like, I'm so tired. But we can see here that just destruction and waste lay afield. That sounded so poetic.
I'm telling you, mate, have you ever seen such a wee Russian bit of destruction out here in the field, matey? I'm telling you, this grass is green, but the tanks are rusty.
Man, those tanks do be rusty, man. They be about as rusty as some YouTubers who make content about other YouTubers instead of news, like they're supposed to. But we can see here.
Don't get it twisted, man. These tanks were rusty before they ever got hit with a bomb. Trust me.
Probably. I mean, honestly, they probably were. But you see them dropping some bomblets in the remainder of them that aren't rusty enough and blowing them away.
You know what this looks like? You know, once you look at a little bit more of this footage right here, I was confused at first, but you know what it really looks like?
What does it look like to you, Matthew? What does it look like?
It looks like the sweet smell of winning.
Sweet smelly winning, Governor! But we can see the remainder of the vehicles getting charred. Oh, man. Dude, I would love to have a barbecue out here right now near these things. They look like they're nice and warm.
Man, put some of those hot dogs on the grill, turn up the heat. Oh.
Aw, man, pay for my airline tickets. Aw, man. How much do those cost anyways? We never got an answer on that, did we?
I've heard through the grapevine that they're quite expensive, especially when you don't ride coach.
Oh yes, I've heard that as well. I'm incredulous. Aw, man.
Who could be bothered to ride coach when you could have luxury?
Y'all put all this money towards Ukraine and you didn't put any towards me because I let you put your money towards Ukraine? Shame on you. Aw, man. Another hit piece. Waiter, another hit piece. I need another. But anyways, we can see here that the Russians are continuing to get slammed, slathered, and bantered. And we were able to see some additional proof of this in other clips and videos. We were able to see that down here, a turtle tank was destroyed. We didn't see this in the last clip, but we see it right there. That's a turtle tank, and it's gone. There's another one, and it's gone too. Meanwhile, we also got to see that a T-64 was destroyed as well. I don't know what that intro is, but that's kind of new.
It's the Shark Division.
Man, they get... But we can see the drone getting ready to hit this turtle tank.
It's crazy how prolific the turtle tanks become on the battlefield. I thought it was a one-off thing by Russia, like they just needed to try something else to try to, experiment, but like they're actually turning this into like a mainstream thing.
Yeah, it's actually, I guess, what Russian tanks will look like in the future now. This is like the armor mod for them, and it looks terrible, and it's not effective at all. like we're seeing here, but it still isn't stopping them from trying. And we see it continuing to burn, continuing to smolder. And with that, that's the end of the clip right there, but still showing what's been going on in that area with the failed Russian offensive towards Bilohorivka, which failed tremendously. Moving on from that and into the area of Berestove, we also got to see that the Shadow Unit, the Shadow Wizard Money Gang, was able to blow up a Russian ammo cache. Oh, and we got that nice travel music.
They got the blog music on the war footage. Oh my god.
Hello, guys. We're going to go and get some matcha tea, and then we're going to go down to the airport. Like, oh my god. But anyway, so you can see the drones.
And they were wilding on that music choice. I put some, like, classic gas station vlog music over it.
Dude, that's the kind, man, when the blogger gets to the beach, you know, in the video, and he sits there and he puts in, like, the fishbowl lens, the camera, and he, like, turns it around to him. He's like, it's time to go swimming. And then they go into, like, the montage of, like, throwing the football and crap on the beach. Like, that's the kind of music that they play.
Or, you know, worse, when the vloggers, like, will, like, record their feet walking on the ground. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like, they'll literally record their feet walking, and that music will be playing in the background. I was like, why are we looking at your feet? I'm like, I'm sure somebody's got a thing for that out there, but it's like, most people don't.
Man, let them dogs out. But anyways.
Man, they got that dog in them. They try to satisfy that dog in people. They want to see some feet.
Dude, it's in there. Man, there's someone behind the screen watching that video going, oh my god. They're like a Russian watching a fire, man. They're like, wow, do something like that. Oh man, let those dogs out. Thank you for showing your hot dogs. But anyways, moving on from that, it's time to get out of the Shadow Unit's good deeds of the day and down into the area of Bakhmut, where we got to see another Russian BMP cooking up. And there it is. It's brewing. And GW North Star talking about Quentin Tarantino. Tarantino is the slightly more like this. Listen, y'all. I'm gonna have a hot take here, and this might be really, really hot take. Quentin Tarantino, as far as that deal goes, is like Weinstein light. Like, I don't know if anyone else thinks that. I guess that's my hot take of the minute. I'm sure someone's about to get offended and start threatening us with death because they're like a Quentin Tarantino, like, ride or die. But beyond that, don't you kind of find that weird that he's got, like, that thing with feet in his movies? Like it's like he is self-inserts himself into the roles that deal with feet in the movies. I mean, like,
man, I like the way Tarantino talks. Like, I've never heard anybody talk like him. He'll talk so like, put so much emphasis on everything. He'll be like, yes, have you ever seen the movie? Have you seen my new movie? wow. He's like, talks all crazy. It's like, damn, man. It's like he's either a psychopath or like he's got a ton of energy. One of the
dude, that's what happens when there's a literal unlimited feet out there. Like, he's in the interview and he's just like, okay, don't freak out. Just look at the feet. Wow, I mean, have you even seen it? Like, I mean, man, it's just like that. It's like,
he said, I love feet. I'm shutting your butt down.
Dude, wouldn't that be terrible if we actually got like a Tarantino response to this? Like there was like a video where you're just like, shut up, I like feet, period. It's like what the hell? It's like, that's crazy. But anyways, moving on from that and into our next clip, we also get to see that the Russian counter battery radar, a zoo park and a Zhitel were destroyed. And here's the clip of that happening. And some people are saying that Quentin Tarantino's movies are good, and some of them are all right. Like, I've watched some of them, and they're pretty good. But I'm just saying, like, the whole feet thing, though, like, that, like, you can't deny, that is kind of weird, right?
Kind of odd. Someone said, stop yapping and listen. It's a talk show. That's what we do, we yap.
Do you even understand? You're on a talk show. It's a talking show. We talk here. But anyways, moving on from that, we can see that they were able to hit the counter battery radar and also the early warning system as well.
I mean, why would you come to a talk show if you don't want to hear talking? It's a talk show.
Shut up. I want to listen to the talk show without talking. Oh man. Oh my goodness. And also, some people are misunderstanding what I'm saying here. I'm not saying, you know, I just want to make this clear. If you're in defeat, that's your thing. Like that's your own thing. But I'm just saying, self-inserting yourself into the roles that have to deal with feat on the scripts you wrote, that is kind of a little weird, right? Like, that's like, I don't know. That's just kind of like, I don't know. Let me find a good way to explain that without stepping on any more toes. That's kind of like, oh, that's tough. That's really tough to explain. That's kind of like having a thing for, I don't know. There's really nothing else that I can come up with that you could have a thing for that isn't like extremely like X-rated. So I can't really come up with an example of it, but it's like being into something.
People have a thing for pain, you know. They have a thing for like pain, like they want to have pain put on them.
Yeah, you know.
We know one person that likes the pain. They've been getting a lot of it.
but that's
and somehow they just keep going. They want more. They say, "Give me more pain." But I'm like, well, we're gonna serve it right up, buddy.
Okay, so that's the thing. All right, like this is a good thing. So let's say they're like into pain, and then they're like, oh man, I really like pain. So then they write a movie script where there's a specific side character that gets like beat with a whip by like one of the main characters, and then they self-insert themselves into that specific role in the script they wrote. Like, that's what I'm saying is a little weird about it. The whole other thing, no problem. But that specific thing, that is a little weird. But anyways, moving on from that, and moving on into our next clip near Avdiivka, we also got to hear that the 110th Brigade once again shot down another Su-25, which is absolutely incredible to hear. And once again, the Avdiivka front is not really changing at all either. Moving on from that and behind the lines to Mospine, we were able to see that another Russian surface-to-air missile system was hit. And we were able to see that this was a solid hit. They obliterated the thing. It is gone. Gone and forgotten. But still, very nice to see and wonderful to know. But a lot of people have been talking outside of this about what Belarus has been doing and what the dog been doing. As Putin arrived in Belarus today for talks with Lukashenko for the tactical nuclear drills, and a lot of people have been wondering, what the dog doing? And a lot of people have been saying that Belarus will threaten the West. Some people are saying that Belarus isn't going to listen to Putin. Some people say that they need more info. And some people just don't know. But Matthew, what are people saying, and what are you thinking?
All right, so on this one, now that we've seen Putin himself, he made a rare visit to Belarus, in person, that is, for talks with Lukashenko, whatever you want to call him, for tactical nuclear drills. And what are your thoughts? It looks like 51% said Belarus will threaten the West, while 19% said Belarus isn't listening to Putin anymore, and 19% said, I need more info on this. And I would say that Lukashenko is probably still listening to Putin, because if he wasn't, he probably would fall out of a window, because that's how much power Putin exercises over Belarus. It's a puppet state, so he wouldn't last too long like that. I would say that probably Putin simply wanted to make sure that the arrangements are in place for Belarus to indeed threaten the West. That's why nuclear weapons were given to the state of Belarus, is because Putin wants to use them as an extension of Russia, which is closer to NATO. So I think that's what's going on here. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my opinion, Belarus will most likely threaten the West. Lukashenko is pretty stupid like that, so I'd honestly believe that some kind of a threatening action by Belarus will most likely happen. Most likely only on the diplomatic level, though, not on a serious level, but that would be my opinion. That would be my take on the matter. Moving on from that and down into Olenivka, we also got to hear of a burning loaf. That's their loaf. They're freaking out.
Вот все идем пешком. Съебываемся. Пидорас. Сигналит, касается нам вслед.
And they're on their way, but their loaf is gone, and looks like it was overcooked. Moving on from that and all the way through the southern front, it's now time for us to get on into the area of Novaya Kakhovka, where we got to see a massive launch of ATACMS. Look at them go. Aren't they beautiful?
The Ukrainians certainly think they're beautiful. They're launching tons of them.
Oh, and they are. And the impact is huge. But before we get down to the impact in Crimea, we were able to hear of a great surprise. Look, Matyar surprised one of the Russians.
Пілот готується для глибокого проникнення дрона.
This drone is just hanging out on the door. The Russian hops out, and he was like a Looney Tunes character. Look at him. He's like, oh, hello. And then he sees the drone. He's like, oh, блядь! And then he starts trying to run out the way.
Та біжить.
But alas.
Пізнутий хробаче до віри звернувся. Так то було
It didn't go
зовні.
that well for him.
Дрон на підході. О,
We see it from this angle here.
Пав.
Oh!
Oh, блядь.
Дрона спостереження, на жаль, вітер вносить свої правки, але дим
That dude kind of had that
після
Guzalik
враження,
Blacken haircut.
Бока нема.
Man, I'm telling you what, they really
Навіщо?
did.
Втік? Нема. Пілоти самі не очікували, що він ламанеться. Коротке спостереження, а ось і хробак. За автоматом повернувся.
Oh, there he goes. He's like, okay, I'm on my way. It's like, huh, that's interesting. But anyways, moving on from that clip, which is the only one we got out of this area, it's now time for us to move down to Crimea. Things have been going off here as we got to see that massive impacts from ATACMS missiles, probably the ones we saw fired in the last clip, were beginning to hit the area of Alushta, a somewhat sizable town on the southern coast of Crimea. And here's the clip of the impacts in the distance. Boosh. And you hear someone whistling for their dog. But we can see the air defense firing. Ooh!
Dude, your dog was that far out that you got to worry about it being hit by that explosion. That dog was a goner anyway.
Probably gonna wake up the dog.
All right, that dude with the sound effects just knock it off. For real, though.
But with that, that's the end of the clip. And very, very interesting to see. Meanwhile, in the area of Sevastopol, we were also able to see that apparently there were drone attacks occurring over here as well. I don't know what these people are looking at. It's like some bright light in the sky. It's not the sun. It's not the moon either, but we hear explosions in the background.
Man, what the hell is that? What the hell is that sound?
I'm not gonna lie, man. That sounded like something from the Middle East in the mid-2010s.
Yeah.
So like, I was like, oh, what the hell?
That sounds like some type of like prayer call or something like that. That was footage from Ukraine?
Yeah,
Or
that was
Crimea?
footage from Crimea.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
It kind of is. Meanwhile, we also got to see a Sea Baby firing off some MLRS rockets as well. This was kind of cool. Look. There goes the rockets. And now
That is crazy, man. They put MLRS on those things.
I know, look at it. It's pretty cool, actually. But with that, that's the end of that clip right there. Really cool to see. And with that, it's now time for us to start moving on up towards Kyiv to get the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 820 of the war. And so, let me go get it really quickly. Oh, yeah. No, it's got the English audio track. Get it off. Get it off. Okay, so there we go. And without further ado, here is the speech.
Дорогі українці, українки, сьогодні весь день тривала ліквідація наслідків ударів російських терористів по Харківщині. Під ударом були Харків, Люботин, Дергачі, ракети, потім керовані авіабомби. Одна з мішеней Росії сьогодні – це видавничий комплекс, один із найбільших в Україні. Ракетний удар, люди загинули, є поранені. Згорів склад з книжками, обладнання. Там друкувалося багато українських видавництв. І це для російських терористів ціль. Усі сфери життя вони хочуть спалити, зруйнувати. Сьогодні багато реакцій і в Україні, і в світі на цей черговий акт російського терору. Але щоразу, коли стаються такі удари, коли руйнуються наші міста та села, коли знищується життя і згорають книжки і все, що береже людяність, завжди варто говорити відкрито. Чому це досі можливо? Лише тому, що Україна досі має обмеження в захисті. Це дефіцит систем ППО, які насправді є у світу. Це дефіцит далекобійності для наших воїнів і абсолютна відсутність можливості знищувати саме джерело російського терору. Поблизу наших кордонів, зокрема, ракетні установки, які, власне, б'ють по Україні, по життю наших людей. Абсолютна більшість світу однаково сприймає загрозу терору. Люди завжди прагнуть надійного захисту від терористів і справедливого покарання терористів за їхні атаки проти життя. І кожен народ сприймав би як неправильні, несправедливі обмеження в протидії терору. Захист життя повинен мати всі необхідні інструменти, щоб дійсно перемагати терористів. І кожен лідер, який так само, як і українці, сприймає це, кожна держава, що дійсно повністю підтримує нашу протидію терору, я дякую вам. Але потрібно більше зусиль, більше рішучості лідерів світу, щоб російський терор нарешті програв. Друге, що важливо за сьогодні, я хочу особливо подякувати воїнам нашої 110-ї окремої механізованої бригади, які знищили російський Су-25. Ще напередодні теж на Донеччині воїни нашої 47-ї окремої механізованої бригади теж збили Су-25. Дякую за влучність, воїни. Дякую кожному підрозділу, кожному солдату, кожному командиру, які роблять все, щоб давати Україні необхідні результати на фронті. Попри все. Провів засідання Ставки. Доповідь головкома і щодо Харківщини, і щодо боїв на Донеччині. Робимо все, щоб стримувати російські штурми. Була доповідь міністра оборони щодо постачання для наших воїнів. Керівник Державної прикордонної служби України доповів щодо ситуації по нашому кордону в Чернігівській, Сумській та Харківській областях. Були доповіді розвідок, ГУР та СЗР, в тому числі щодо російських намагань зірвати саміт миру та участь держав світу. Протидіємо російському бажанню продовжити і розширити війну. Сьогодні ж говорив з президенткою Північної Македонії та прем'єр-міністрами Греції і Норвегії, запросив їх на саміт миру та подякував за підтвердження участі. Ще кілька речей. Наші українські морпіхи сьогодні відзначають свій день, і цей день нашої до них особливої шани. Сьогодні було честю для мене привітати воїнів, відзначити державними нагородами. І сьогодні ж я також зустрівся з командою та амбасадорами нашої державної благодійної платформи United 24. Вже друга річниця діяльності United. І це один із найбільш успішних українських міжнародних проєктів. За 2 роки фандрайзингу для потреб України, наших сил оборони та безпеки, для потреб захисту життя в Україні зібрано вже $650 мільйонів через United 24. Я дякую усім у світі, хто долучився і допомагає. Я дякую кожному і кожній, хто з Україною. Слава нашим воїнам! Слава Україні!
And Slava. And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 820 of the war. And that moves us on into the second segment of the news, where we get to talk to all of y'all. We get to talk about anything y'all want to talk about. Anything and everything. Literally anything and everything. And I saw a couple of people come in the chat tonight, and I saw some very interesting questions. Someone said, wait a minute, the guy who runs the channel, he only pays attention to people who pays? No. No, do you even pay attention? Do you not? Do you not see how this channel runs? When you click on the stream, did you even see an ad? Did you see a sponsor? No. We run this thing off of viewer support from folks like you. And so, the people who support...
Finally happening.
What?
I said a meltdown is finally happening.
Yeah. So when we get supported, we gotta thank the people who help us to keep this thing running. And so, no, the honest answer, and I feel my blood pressure actually rising doing that, so I'm gonna calm down there because I start heating up. But beyond that, the real answer, all jokes aside, is that you can just ask questions on this channel absolutely free, and they will probably get answered. It's just that this channel runs on a very interesting monetization system. It's really unseen anywhere else on YouTube, and that's why people kind of, get confused about it, because they're like, wait a minute, do I have to pay to have a question answered? You don't. But we do not run ads. We do not have sponsors. So we don't make a cent running the show. Like, at all, period. We don't make a dime out of this thing, except for viewer support in Super Chats. So anyone who throws in the Super Chat, our entire existence relies on folks who throw in super chats to be able to do this as a job and a living. So instead of taking a fat shit on them and getting to them last, I want to make sure that we make sure to respect them and their time and their effort to even want to support the channel at all, considering that they had to work to make that money in the first place, and they decided that we should be the ones to receive that money to be able to keep this thing rolling. We make sure to address them first, because it only makes sense, it's only fair to those people, because they're making the entire channel possible for everyone else. We do get to everyone else, though, and we try and answer as many live chats as we can, which are questions that are thrown in absolutely for free. But at the same time, we have a responsibility to the supporters of this channel who throw in super chats, because when I say this at the end of every super chat, this is no joke. If it wasn't for them, this channel would not be possible. We do not we are not amoebas. We do not live off of nothing. We, of course, have to be able to do this as a job, and the only way that we can do this as a job is to be able to make a living off of this. And so when folks support the channel, we've got to address those first. So I hope everyone understands that. If you still don't understand that, I'm sorry. I don't know. I guess you just live for free. Maybe you're a communist or something. I don't know. But folks like us, we have to pay rent. And we also have to pay for other things like food, which I actually usually end up subsidizing Matthew's food these days. He eats my food. But I do it because
Hey,
I
what do
care.
you mean, man?
Like, dude, it's good food, though.
You
Like,
send me
you
a
know what I'm
company
talking
meal
about?
from time to time. I'm telling you, man.
Man, you know what I'm talking about, though. And they are pretty good.
They're good, but I subsidize all my meals except for the handful of company meals that you give me.
Man, well, the company meals are the best meals. I'm just playing. Matthew mostly does get his own food, but every once in a while I give him free food, usually after the stream these days. But with that, I hope...
Good
oh my
Lord.
God!
Damn.
Dang!
Thank you very much, Blackburn. Good Lord.
Goodness gracious!
That's the maximum you can actually throw in. That's tremendous. Huge things.
Oh my God! That is crazy! Hit
Maybe
the
for a
like
loop.
on that. I've never seen anything like that before in my life. Goodness gracious!
Oh, look. You can actually reply to it. Let me see how this works. Thank you. Look at that.
What? That's crazy.
That is sick.
That is sick. I can't, for some reason on my end, I can't. But I see it, I see it, my friend, and thank you massively for the support and help of this channel to keep on running. But I hope we address that well before we move on into the super chats here about how the support works for anyone who is new, because I don't want y'all to think that that this channel is run as a pay-to-play. It's not run as a pay-to-play. That's why we don't have ads and sponsors. If we wanted to make this thing a pay-to-play, we would have ads, sponsors, we would have buy me a coffee, we would have like a million different ways that you could pay us like everyone else does, and then we'd also beg y'all for money openly on air. And we do not do that. We do not ask y'all for money. Y'all can support if y'all want, but if y'all do, y'all are going to be prioritized by far, because we have to be able to do this thing for a living. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, it's now time for us to move on into the more so the questions, and specifically the super chats first. And so what do we got, Matthew?
All right. So real quick, before we move into our super chats, I was not able to run this poll in time to actually get the audience's opinion on it. But the question was, the first batch of F-16 pilots have graduated as of today from their pilot training. And the question is, will the June delivery deadline be met? And on this one, I have a feeling that it might get pushed back to maybe late June or July. And the reason why I'm saying that is the pilots just graduated from training, and to think that the jets and the pilots are going to be all ready to go in just a week or two, I have some doubts about that. Not saying it's impossible, but of course the U.S. has pushed back that F-16 date before. I think it's still going to happen somewhere in the range of about a few weeks, maybe 3 to 4 weeks, maybe a month or so. But I wouldn't count on it happening literally next week. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, I don't think it will be happening next week. I think it may actually be in early June. I said mid-May to early June, and it looks like it's now going to be in the later end of that window in mid-June. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, it's now time to get on into those questions. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so the first one we have here is from Blackburn, who puts in a $500 donation. That massive support, the largest one of the night, and the maximum amount you can put in on a super chat on the stream. So a huge shout out to Blackburn. That is crazy support, and we appreciate that very much. And Blackburn says, Slava Ukraine.
And Slava Ukraini, and thank you so much for the unbelievable amount of support, Blackburn. That is insane. I mean, like, that is actually the maximum that you can put in a super chat. And if y'all don't know that, YouTube actually has a cap on how much you can super chat on YouTube daily, and it's $500. So he just threw in the cap, Blackburn did, and I'm blown away. It's crazy, insane that you threw in that much support. I gotta thank you massively for supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this thing a reality. Hell, honestly, that is a stretch to even say without folks like you, it wouldn't be a reality. With folks like you, we are able to more than make this a reality and help this thing to keep on running for some time. And I got to thank you unbelievably for enjoying this channel so much that you would support it like that, because it truly blows me away that people find this channel to be worth that much. And you know, when people throw in super chats, it really shows how much some people think the channel is worth, and to others, you know, like a $20 super chat is as much as they could give, and so that is a lot. It means a lot, but still, that is insane to see. And I got to thank you so much for that, Blackburn, because you're helping this channel to continue to be possible and helping us to continue to keep this thing running. And so with that, thank you so much once again. Slava Ukraini, and just a massive thanks. I don't even know where to go with this, but a huge thanks to you so much.
Also, Blackburn said, just discovered the channel yesterday, so he's brand new, actually.
Dang!
And he said, love the stuff so far, and best wishes, guys. And Blackburn, I have no idea how you actually found us, but somehow you got promoted to us. I have a feeling I might know from where, and that's a spectacular backfiring right there. But thank you very much, Blackburn, for finding us, also finding the channel content good as well. We try our best every single night to do these nightly war news streams, tremendous, and also these short war videos as well. So we really appreciate the kind words.
We really do. I mean, and that is crazy. You literally just found the channel yesterday. I cannot believe that. I mean, that's crazy. I cannot believe that, Blackburn, because usually with supporters, like people who support us in super chats, it usually takes a while for people to warm up to this channel, to want to support it, and that's completely understandable, because people don't really know who we are yet, or the lay of the land, or anything like that, you know. And a lot of people have got to figure out if they really enjoy the channel enough to support it at all. I mean, that's a huge step, whether even just be $1 or $500. But Blackburn, you found it yesterday, and just over that amount of time, you've already decided that the channel is worth the maximum that YouTube would allow you to ascribe to. That is insane. That is unbelievable. And I got to thank you so much for that. I cannot believe that you enjoy the channel that much and want to support it like that. And I thank you greatly. Like, it's crazy. I can't thank you enough for that, because, and you know, and a lot of people will be like, oh, come on, you know, you're really groveling. I do not mean to grovel. Like, Matthew will know that joke. But the thing is that when we do this as a living, because this is our job, but super chat support is really the bread and butter. It is the bread and butter of being able to do this. And so when people throw in support like that, it's insane. It actually helps us out massively behind the scenes and being able to just live our lives and also save as well. And I got to thank you so much for that, Blackburn, and I hope that does address that the best I can. And also, cool, you're from near Boston. Really cool. And also, I think, and I think Matthew might be right, it sounds as though, considering you just found us yesterday, you must have found us from somewhere else. And that could only coincide with one other thing that we know of. And so welcome to the Lee Spring Army. And I hope you're here to stay, because we would be happy to have you. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat goes to Richard McGurl, who's a longtime channel legend, and he put in a 50, and no comment to address. But thank you very much, Richard, for that support. That is very generous of you, and I added a like to your super chat, so there's no comment to address. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much, Richard McGurl, for the support. You have been around forever, literally forever, ages and ages and ages you've been around. And I got to thank you so much once again for enjoying this channel so much that you find it worthwhile to support and help us keep this thing running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now. And your comment, while you didn't have a comment, your support says a lot. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to, let's see here. Our next one goes to Sorry Nothing, who puts in a $30 donation. And thank you very much, Sorry Nothing, for that support. And they said, I appreciate more foreigner concerned Taiwan situation, but please get rid of the statement that Taiwan claimed China. They said no one in Taiwan want to launch a war, execute the reclaim China duty.
And I thank you for the support. And while I see where you're coming from, and that is true, that no one in the modern day wants to reclaim mainland China, historically, that's the claim, and I'm sure you know that. And let me make sure that the currency here is correct, because I'm pretty sure that RT is some kind of a Taiwanese currency. So let me make sure to double check on that. So let's see here, NT currency. That is a new Taiwan dollar, so you are from Taiwan. But as you would know, sorry, nothing, but thank you for the first support. You would know that when Chiang Kai-shek lost the Civil War for the large part, which never officially ended, but really ended in 1949, as far as the actual combat action of the war happened, Chiang Kai-shek fled to Taiwan, but to his dying day, he said that the Republic of China's government, now exiled to Taiwan, was the rightful ruler of all of China. And historically, that is the claim. While that's a claim that the Taiwanese do not ever intend nowadays on following through on, historically, they have always claimed that all of China is theirs, just like the Communist Chinese claim that Taiwan is theirs, with the rest of China as well. So I don't mean to say that that's something that y'all think of nowadays, because that's certainly not the case. Taiwan believes itself to be its own country with really no real attachment to the mainland of China. At least that's the kind of idea or thought process that exists nowadays. But historically, that's the one that did. And when I said that, I was trying to explain the kind of tensions that have existed in the region ever since the end of the Chinese Civil War, which really leads to the situation we're even seeing right now. So I'm sorry that you misunderstood that, and I'm sorry that I misspoke where it sounded like that, but that's what I was trying to get across. But still, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope I was able to clarify that fairly well, so that way you're not thinking I was saying that the Taiwanese are like these war-hungry people, because they're not. They're completely defensive these days, instead of trying to possibly rethink about retaking mainland China. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that the best I can, and thank you also for being one of our Taiwanese viewers. There isn't really a lot of Taiwanese viewers on this channel, and it's really cool to know that you joined us here tonight and found this channel worthwhile to support, and also clarify a little bit, maybe about one of my misstatements. But with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Sergeant Carnage. He threw in a $20 donation in. Thank you very much, Sarge, as well, for that support. And he says, a question from the chat, please, and keep up the good work.
And thank you so much for the support, Sergeant Carnage, and thank you so much for enjoying our work and wanting us to keep it up, because you're helping to make it possible. Every single one of y'all who supports this channel makes this thing a reality day in and day out. And if it wasn't for folks like y'all, we wouldn't be able to be here right now, running this channel, making it possible. And so thank you so much once again, Sergeant Carnage, for being a amazing soldier of the Lee Spring Army, and also helping us to keep the flags of the Lee Spring Army flying high. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and that live chat question that was requested is going to go to Too Hip, who says, what defense pacts do we have with Taiwan?
Let's see. The good question. We actually had several of them over time. I don't know what the most recent one is named. But does U.S. have treaty with Taiwan?
Isn't it called the Taiwan Defense Pact?
I think it's something like that. I'm trying to make sure, though. Let's see here. At least in the middle of the Cold War, it was called the Sino-American Mutual Defense Treaty. But, dang, I gotta see. Let's see. Taiwan Relations Act is what it's called. So, that's the one that we currently have at the moment. It's a diplomatic commitment to Taiwan. I believe it also stands as a defensive pact as well. So yes, we do have a standing defensive pact at the moment with Taiwan, from what I understand. The Taiwan Relations Act of 1979. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for sponsoring that live chat and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Blue Flam 777 LSA, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Blue Flam, for that support. And I must tell you something. I read the first sentence in my head just a second ago, and I read that off and thought, my goodness, this could be taken a bad way. So, Enforcer, what do you think?
Let's see here. Let me go and make sure to double review that, because my control room always slows down from lag. But let me go get it. Where's one? Oh no.
Oh, that first line killed me when I read it. I was like, oh dear, if I read that off, someone's gonna be going, oh, you see, I told you.
Oh man, I see where you're coming from with that too. Man, and then the second one, man. Did you see the second one? Oh my goodness, man. It's another one. Like, did you see it?
Oh man, yeah, man, that's like the get canceled speed run right there.
Oh my goodness. Blue Flam, why? Why, Blue Flam? You were my brother! But I'm just kidding. But nevertheless, thank you so much for the support, Blue Flam 777. Sadly, we will actually have to forgo reading both of those. Like, I hate to say it, because they are like locked and loaded. Like, they're pretty good. But we have to make sure to watch our ass, because there are psycho people out there who are going to spin our words against us or completely remove the context of something to make us look like evil people. So sadly, we can't read that one. But if it wasn't for that, I would get a huge laugh out of it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Blue Flam, and we will make sure to send the question onto the chat in your honor.
All right, and this question from the chat is going to go to Miguel Morales in honor of, guess who? Blue Flam 777 LSA. And Miguel says, how do you guys think North Korea could affect this issue between China and Taiwan? And do you think they might get involved?
I don't really think they get affected much. They don't really have a Navy or an Air Force that would be competent enough. So they'd probably just sit it out. The only thing they could try and do is maybe invade South Korea. But even then, I don't really know how that would really change much in the area. So with that, I hope that does address that live chat fairly well. Good question, though. I just don't think the North Koreans have a lot of potential in that regard if that situation was to unfold. And so with that, thank you once again for asking a very good question. And thank you once again for sponsoring that live chat, Blue Flam 777. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Kevin, who throws in a $20 donation. Hey! And thank you very much, Kevin, for that support. And he says, if history is going to repeat itself, as we often say, my question is, this is a slow burn to World War III, and World War II was a slow burn over years of provocation, and are we in the middle of a period of escalation that we can't really recover from?
I would say that every period of escalation is recoverable until the point of war, and even at war, in the opening phases of the war, it is still negotiable as well. But I would say that this is certainly appearing to be the lead up to a major conflict. Like I hate to say that, but it really does look like that. Also, Jason, don't retract that message. We're about to get around to addressing that here in a second. Don't back out now. Don't be a coward. I saw that. We're gonna get to it. Like they retracted the message maybe because they put it in. They went, oh, they might give me. It's like no, too late now. It's like too late now. I saw it. We're just getting around to it. So you hang tight, pal. You hang tight. Don't leave yet. But moving on from that, it does certainly look like there is an escalatory period that is going on right now, with everything going on in Eastern Europe, everything going on in the Middle East, and everything going on in East Asia as well. It's almost like the lead up to World War I or World War II, where everyone knows it's going to happen. It's just that no one really wants to happen. So I would certainly agree with you. It does look like it's leading up to that, but hopefully this time we can actually jump off of that path before it gets all the way there. But that doesn't mean being cowards and appeasing. No. That was the thing that led to World War II. We need to have balls. We need to step forward and take care of things before they get out of hand, and just put them to rest right now. That would be my opinion on that. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. But before we move on to the next one, y'all know what's about to happen. We got someone who's a little bit of a half a wise guy in here. Matthew, did you see him?
I didn't see it. I saw something get retracted. I didn't see the message, though.
It was something about one of our voices. About, I don't know how y'all get in here and can stand these voices at like the 50-minute mark. This is so stupid. I can't stand this channel. And I gotta say, Jason, if you can't stand this channel, why are you here? Why does your mom like this channel? I mean, your mom really likes this channel. And also, why are you here? What is up with you? Are you okay? Are you mentally defective? I mean, we run into a decent amount of mentally defective people like that. Like, if you don't like the channel, hey, all good to you. But another thing I'd like to tell you is, if you don't like the channel like that, or you feel like you can mouth off like that in the chat, why don't you come down to us and talk to us? And you're probably and I know the stupid thing that you'll probably say, I didn't mean it like that. No, you meant it like that, because people like you always do. And you know where we live, because we've been doxxed about 90 times, so I think everyone in the world knows where we live. But come on down if you want to say something like that. I'd be more than happy. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And it's now time for us to come on and into the next one. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and our next one here goes to Eason, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Eason, for that support. That is very generous of you. And there's sadly no question to address here. But thank you very much once again. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And while you didn't throw in a comment, the support means a lot and helps us to keep this thing running. And so with that, thank you greatly once again for support. Thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on rolling, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible. And if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now doing this thing. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we've got a 20 from Blue Flam 777 LSA, the longtime channel legend. He throws in this second one of the night. He says, the leaders of New Zealand, Taiwan, and Vietnam and China walk into the White House. Just kidding. Question to the chat.
I don't get it. Like, I don't get it.
I don't get it either. I don't know. Wow, am I missing something?
It's like going like right over my head. Like, I don't get that one. But I thank you for the support, Blue Flame. I'm trying to figure out what the punchline is, but I can't figure it out. It's going right over my head. But still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And we will make sure to get one from the live chat. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right. And the question from the live chat is going to go to Hardwater Channel, who says, aren't Allied forces patrolling nearby Taiwan?
They are in limited numbers. It's not an incredibly large amount, though. It's maybe 1 or 2 warships at a single time, most likely frigates or destroyers. So going off of that, I would say that it's not an incredibly large number. If you want to say patrol in a loose term, yes. But if you're wanting to say patrol as in like a large enough force to actually protect Taiwan, not really. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, and I thank you so much once again, Blue Flam 777, for sponsoring that live chat and helping us to keep this channel running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to, let's see here, while I scroll down in the spreadsheet while it's freezing up on me, this one goes to Jolly Hiveling, who puts in that $20 donation. And thank you very much, Jolly Hiveling, for that support. They said, which Godzilla, Legendary Godzilla or Godzilla -1?
The Legendary Godzilla or Godzilla -1. Isn't Godzilla -1 the... Let me go pull it up. Godzilla -1. And let me make sure to pull this up on the second screen for copyright concerns. But let's see here. When is this one from? 2023? If this is the one that had, like, the freakish, like, laser thing that happened, I don't know what the name of it was. Like... But it was pretty cool looking. I saw a clip of it on YouTube, and I was like, dang, that's pretty cool. That one. It would be that one. Like, I don't know which one it was, but I hope that is the one. So with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one. But thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running.
Indeed. And our next one here goes to Kevin once again, who put in another $20 donation. And thank you very much, Kevin, for the second support. He said, between Ukraine and Taiwan, where are we? And are these the early days of World War III?
I would say maybe it may be the early days of World War III, but as far as we are concerned in between Taiwan and Ukraine, I would be entirely honest, Taiwan will probably take precedent over Ukraine if that war was to begin, considering that the major semiconductor factories that produce most of the wafer chips and also semiconductors around the world are in Taiwan. So for that reason, we would probably end up prioritizing them, because that falling into Chinese hands would probably be more serious than Ukraine falling into Russian hands. If we had to literally end up just saying one loses while the other one survives, who would it be? It probably would end up being Taiwan, just for the strategic reasons. Because if we're going to lose something, we would rather end up losing Ukraine and maybe a strategic advantage in Eastern Europe to make sure that we don't lose a technological advantage worldwide. So that would be my opinion on that, at least for now. But still, at the same time, I don't think we really give up either of them. I think that we would certainly be able to stick in and support both sides of the world and keep things running in both directions without having to deal with too much friction, in my honest opinion. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you so much once again for support. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running, Kevin. And thank you for throwing in some real ones. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've got a 20 from Brent. And thank you very much, Brent, as well, for your $20 support as well, supporting the work. And sadly, no comment to address on this one. But huge shout out to Brent, And Enforcer, what say you?
And a huge shout out to Brent for throwing in the support. We greatly appreciate it. And I thank you so much for that because you're helping us to make this thing a reality. And so with that, we are on to the next one. Thanks once again.
Indeed. And our next one goes to Jordi Ferrer Van Laroven, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Jordi Laroven, for that support. And I hope I'm doing justice to your name. I have a feeling I actually aced that one, I think. But let me know. And he said, LSA, take one from the chat.
And LSA, baby! And we will make sure to take one from the chat. But thank you so much once again for your support and helping this channel to keep on running. I think your name's really cool, by the way. I think that's pretty neat. And Matthew, what do we got for the live chat?
So the live chat question on this one is going to go to AF Kaplan, who says, is it known how many U.S. personnel are in Taiwan at the present time?
I believe there's maybe a few thousand. I would say maybe it's about a brigade size of U.S. forces that are in Taiwan, but that number is coming off the top of my head. That may fluctuate rapidly from month to month or quarter to quarter in the year, but I would say it's probably about a brigade-sized group of U.S. forces that are in Taiwan right now. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, who puts in a $15 donation. And a huge shout out to AMX10, as always, for supporting the channel. And he says, China are polite by its true definition in the way they only want Taiwan and want to leave the Philippines and Japan alone during the invasion, and they don't want interference.
And I thank you for the support, but that's really how all countries are. They don't really want interference because that just ends up causing them more problems. Like for Russia, they're more than happy to just say the war's with Ukraine only. It's not with everyone else. Because if everyone else hopped in and got involved, things are not going to be that easy or that fun for Russia. And also the same thing with the Chinese. The Chinese are saying that because they don't want any other countries involved that would make this a lot more difficult, a lot more expensive, and cost much more manpower. And that's kind of why they're saying that. So you could kind of in the end make the argument that every country is polite when trying to invade another, because they'd really just like it to be them versus the other instead of them versus everyone else if they tried that invasion. But still, thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've got a 10 from Chronically Alien. And I just realized they've been chronically alien for a very long time.
Man, it's
alien,
illness. It's sickness.
It's just, and he's down on that alien. He said, just thank you guys for being just as entertaining to, goodness, he said some choice words here, to us something here, as the ones who keep this most awesome and best ever channel running ever seriously. And thank you for the kind words as well.
And thank you so much for the kind words, Chronically Alien. And Matthew, were they giving some choice words to you-know-who?
No, they were talking about themselves. I was like, no, man. Like, I'm not going to repeat that.
Man, what? No, Chronically Alien, you're fun to have around. What the hell? Don't say bad things about yourself. Come on. But beyond that, thank you so much for the kind words, though. It does mean a lot, and I love to know that we were able to get folks to laugh and joke around a little bit on this channel, because the world is such a serious place to not be able to joke around in it. And I feel like we do a fairly good job of being able to balance the two, the seriousness and the jokes on this channel. And I thank you so much, Chronically Alien, for enjoying that and appreciating that greatly and helping this channel to keep on running. And I'm assuming that many other people agree with you, because we ended up surpassing, while we were on air tonight, 214,000 subscribers. What do you know? That's crazy, Matthew. We ended up getting about, I think, 400 to 500 subscribers today. Crazy. And I gotta say, thank you once again, Chronically Alien, for being around forever, being one of the first few thousand, I think, that we got. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running once again. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Frostbright Productions, who is also a longtime channel legend, and huge shout out to Frostbright, while I trip all over my words there, for that $20 support. And he says, I think I enjoy your voices, Enforcers. And by the way, I dropped a new intro for you guys to check out for the live stream. It's in the support email for Matt. And yes, I did see it. It went ding, ding, ding. He said, no copyright issues this time, and be cool to see it tonight.
And thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I don't think we'd be able to get it up tonight. We could probably try and get it up tomorrow night if possible. But I still got to thank you so much once again, Frostbright Productions, for always helping us out with that. And also, And yes, I just saw you say that in the live chat, Frostbright. It is really hard to find royalty-free music. And royalty-free music that is good. Like, that is probably the most difficult part, is finding good royalty-free music. But still, I got to thank you so much once again for sending that in. That is incredibly nice of you. And we will make sure to look into it and try and use it. Also, one second, the espresso wore off, so I'm like absolutely like a little sleepy. Like right now, like I'm not even kidding. But beyond that, I gotta say, thank you so much for enjoying our voices. Some people don't like our voices, most people do. And I gotta thank you so much for enjoying our voice. And not only that, supporting this channel so that way we can continue to talk the same way we've talked for 820 days. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Joe Little, who puts in a $10 donation, and huge shout out to Joe for that support. He says China doesn't have enough landing craft yet.
That's exactly what I'm saying. That's exactly what I've been saying. You can ask Matthew. I've been saying that for a long time. I've said the Chinese Navy does not have the kind of abilities to support a landing force. I've been saying that forever, and I agree with you, Johnny Little. And I thank you so much for the support and throwing that in, because that's exactly what I was thinking. Like, literally dead on the nail. Dead on the nail. That's what I've been saying for the longest time, and I'm just so happy to hear someone finally agree with me out there. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this time we've got a 10 from Manchild. And shout out to Birmingham, Alabama, by the way, the headquarters of the LSA, which is where Manchild's also from. And thank you very much, Manchild, for that $10 support. He said, never mind the numbers. LSA kicking butt either way. And Manchild, I'll tell you what, the numbers are also kicking butt on this channel as well. Like, by far, like, really good looking stats, by the way. And we're very appreciative for that. And I forgot how it compares to some other ones. Not that it matters or anything like that, but it's very competitive. I'll put it that way. But Enforcer, what say you?
Oh, really competitive. And I gotta say, I thank you for the support, and the numbers actually show that we're doing incredibly good. We are gaining thousands of subscribers a month, in sometimes unbelievable amounts. Like, just last month, I think it was like, 30,000 subscribers in a month. It was one of the fastest months that we've ever grown on YouTube. And then this month, I think we're up in the thousands. Well, actually, let me check. How high are we? We are at about 5,000 subscribers over the past month. So we've been doing incredibly good. And not only that, the views have been wildly high as well. Like, we've gotten 4.5 million views over the past month as well. I mean, everything's incredibly good. And it's showing that this channel is just thriving right now. And I gotta say, thank you so much for the support, and LSA all the way, and the Lee Spring Army will never die. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to JMP Traveler, who puts in a $10 donation. And huge shout out to you, JMP, for that support. He said, this Monday, the U.S. will celebrate Memorial Day, and we will celebrate by grilling some hot dogs.
Oh, and happy Memorial Day, by the way. That is coming around, like, very, very soon. But also, I gotta say, hot dogs? Like, that's the best you can do. Have a burger. Like, don't have a hot dog. Have a burger. Like, hot dogs are terrible. You end up running into these weird addicts that are running hot dog stands. Don't do it. You'll have, like, fentanyl in your hot dogs or something. Like, it'll be terrible. It'll be absolutely terrible. But nevertheless, I got to thank you so much once again for the support, and I hope that you enjoy this channel, and I thank you so much once again for helping us to keep this thing running, because folks like you help to make this thing possible and help us to keep this thing rolling. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to DS, who puts in a $10 donation. And huge shout out to DS for that support as well. He said, thank you guys for being my nightly routine, and didn't post a pic, but the LSA flag is known here.
Oh, it is. And I got to thank you for the support. And also, thank you for getting the flag, because it is cool to know that there are hundreds of those right now flying around the entirety of the world. And it's incredible to know that you're one of those folks who has one and is flying it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running.
All right, and the next one is going to go to Andy L, who put in a $10 donation, and huge shout out to Andy. He said, a statement and question for the audience. He said, why does everyone say the U.S. needs to step up, and why doesn't your country step up? And one thing real quick, I saw a lot of people getting very vehement about this one in the live chat. It's a sensitive topic because here's why. Because Europeans view it as a European versus U.S. issue. For example, when a U.S. citizen says the European Union should step up, they think that the United States citizen is bashing the EU and thinks that they're freeloading. I'm not necessarily saying they're freeloading, but they do need to meet that 2% GDP suggestion of spending that NATO suggests. It's not a requirement necessarily, but it's more of a suggestion. They do need to step up and meet that. I brought that up to a European member or a European citizen a while back, and they got very offended by it. And I meant no offense, but they cried all night after asking that question. So I don't know why everybody gets so offended about that. If someone said the U.S. needs to like fix something that was a European citizen, I'd be like, well, you might have a valid point, and either I'll say I disagree with it or agree with it, but I wouldn't get horribly offended by it. But I understand where you're coming from, Andy. And Enforcer, what say you?
And Andy has a question. I saw you getting heat for it in the chat. I actually saw that, but it's a valid question. Like when I said that, I just saw, hey, yo, that's valid. That's valid. You know what I'm talking about?
Valid, man, it's valid.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. But Andy, that's a great question actually, and it's one that causes a lot of anger, honestly. And I see that you kind of got a little bit, so I think you know where I'm coming from here by saying that it's just a very contentious topic like that. And Matthew kind of hit it dead on the nail, but I'll make sure to cover it in my own way because it's something that comes, and half of our audience is American, half of them are European. Well, half of them are from the rest of the world, really. And so let me try and address this the best I can. America is the largest and most powerful member of the Western sphere. No one comes close. I mean, like, no one does. And that's not to say that the other countries suck or they're terrible. It's just that they just cannot get close. I mean, our GDP is insane. I believe our GDP is as large as the European Union's. And let me see. EU GDP. So, let's see. So actually, our GDP is larger than the entirety of the European Union combined. And if we were to include the United Kingdom, it would actually be par on par with the United States. And Europe, the European Union, is pretty much the largest part of the Western sphere, outside of the countries in East Asia, such as New Zealand, Australia, Japan, and South Korea, as well as Taiwan, which are also a part of the Western sphere, but at the same time, they're not a part of Europe. But nevertheless, Europe as a whole collectively only has the GDP of the United States of America. And that's kind of the big thing that leads the United States to be the police, or to have to step in and do everything instead of any other country doing it, is because for some of these countries, like say if France wanted to go and do their own thing right now, the amount of spending that they would have to incur to do something that we would do would be monumental for France. It would be insane for them to even try and undertake that. But for America, it's just a stroll down memory lane. It's just a walk in the park. We hardly even spend any real money on it. And while it seems like loads of money, I mean, it's an insurmountable, unthinkable amount of money that we'll spend. We'll spend trillions of dollars over decades on a certain project or a certain conflict. It doesn't really mean much for America, but for France, it would destroy them. It would destroy their economy, or Germany, or Japan. And those are some of the largest economies in the Western world. Just the UK, France, Germany, and Japan. Those are the biggest ones behind the United States. And it would destroy them. It would legitimately destroy them. So for anyone else to really step up and do what America does, it would take a coalition. And coalitions are incredibly hard to gather up and then make sure that everyone stays on the same page and sticks through its course. That is incredibly difficult. I mean, wildly difficult. And that's kind of the problem that everyone runs into. And that's why everyone looks to the United States and goes, hey, could you do it? Because we're not having to create a coalition to do anything. We're just on our own. We're the largest member of the group as well. So then a lot of people just look at us and expect us to do everything, which, I mean, to be honest, it's not an unfair thing to assume, because back in the day when the British Empire was kind of leading the Western sphere, because they were kind of like the dad of the United States as far as leading the West, they were kind of the ones to go around and do everything, and then France would join them as well, kind of like how the US and the UK do everything lock and step nowadays. But at the same time, I completely get where you're coming from, though, because it always seems a little unfair how the United States does have to go around and do everything. And then that leads a lot of Americans, and they have a pretty decent argument where both sides have incredibly decent arguments. I want to make that very clear. But there is a very decent argument to be made. Why in the world does the United States do everything? Why can't everyone else do something? And I can see that argument as well, because countries in Europe seem, and I'll say this because we've dealt with some Europeans running this channel, and I'm not going to say which ones. It's not y'all in the chat. It's other Europeans, and Matthew knows the one I'm specifically talking about, that when we bring this up just as a question, they have like this smug, arrogant attitude about them, like America is just their foot servant or their handmaid or something like that, where we were supposed to go around and do everything for them just because. And then at the same time, they have something of a condescending nature towards Americans, which ends up souring relations really on a people-to-people level. And then a lot of Americans get on board. These people ought to be footing their own bill, which, you know, you can see, I can see that. Like, I can see that argument. But at the same time, Andy L, I'd actually have to be on the side of, and now having you explain both of them, I would have to be on the side of America should be doing everything around the world and, you know, everything in between, because we, by doing that, get a lot of control of how things go. Everyone ends up reaping the rewards of all we do, and sure, we do a lot, and no one really has to do much more included. But at the same time, it's just, it's something I feel like it's better for us to do on our own, because we get to decide how things turn out. And say France does something on their own, and they end up taking that massive expense. If they want to do something that's not really within America's grand image of the West, us being kind of like the leader of the sphere, France is not going to back off of that, because they've already put so much of their own money into it, and so much of their economy has been sunk into this one thing. They're going to go, hell no, we can't give any concessions with this. And then the West starts to fragment, because there's not a central country like us that is going around and doing everything and kind of guiding the entire Western sphere down a single path. And so I hope
you remember I asked a specific European that we'd brought on the show before. I had asked him, I said, do you think that that Europe needs to step up and provide more aid to help protect Ukraine? It was an innocently worded question, no like jadedness behind it or anything like that. And my response I got was, well, it's not a pissing contest. And it was really offensive. Like, it was like an offensive response. Like, you know, I'm offended by what you said, and it's offensive you'd even ask that. It's like, my thing is this. The United States is essentially the world's police. We spend by far the most money of any single country, because one thing, we have a good bit of money here in the United States. We have the means to do it, but we do spend a lot of money on helping police the world and help give security to countries which really can't afford to do it all on their own. And I'm not necessarily asking for a thank you from these people, because we're doing it on our own volition and we're taking it on voluntarily. But at the same time, I don't understand the response of getting offended when the reality sinks in and everyone's like, okay, the U.S. is protecting everyone, and that's fine. We're volunteering to do it, but why get offended about it? That's never made sense to me personally. And like I said before, Europe does tremendous things for Western security as well. Those individual countries that form coalitions, they are little powerhouses of their own. Not quite as big as the U.S. powerhouse is, but they are good in their own right. So, I just don't understand it.
I don't really understand it either. Let's, it's a really tough thing, because I'm trying to figure out how to politely get it out, because already I'm seeing one person in particular, Matthew, you'll see that I've already added them, that appears to have gotten wildly offended, like I knew someone would, about this. And so let me figure out. Honestly, like, I'll be quite honest, when I see something that's that rude, I honestly want to start stepping on toes. That will be my honest reaction. But
Oh, don't do that.
Yeah, it's
just one bot.
Yeah, it's one bot. Well, actually, it's not a bot. They've been here for a minute during the whole stream, but this has apparently pissed them off massively. So I'm like, why in the world? Like, it's a topic. Like, you can disagree or you can agree or whatever, but why in the world you gotta go and start acting rude? That starts getting me a little aggravated. But anyways, to try and address this a little bit better, Europeans want U.S. help. Europeans, specifically Europeans, at every instance anything goes wrong, they go, what is America doing? Like, when Ukraine started to end up getting beat a little bit before U.S. support started up again, everyone in Europe was going, we might send them something, I don't know. But America, what the hell are you doing? They're going to lose the war and you're screwing us all over. What the hell? And then we start supporting Ukraine, and then all the Europeans go, you know, America, how stupid of them, you know, and we can do everything on our own. And then when we don't help, then they say, what the hell are you doing? You're screwing us all over. And then when we help, they say that they could do it on their own anyways. That's honestly the thing that's the most aggravating about it. And I say that we still shouldn't just back off because of that reason, because people are going to run their mouths every day of the week. But at the same time, it does end up being annoying to the point that Andy L. folks asked that question, and it's a fairly reasonable question. Why does the United States always do everything? Why not have someone else step up and do it? But then again, at the end of the day, we're the leader of the sphere, so it kind of comes down to us having to do it whether we want to or not, whether people appreciate it or not. So that is what it is. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And also 420, relax, Andrew. Sorry, for some reason with coffee having worn off, I'm like, for some reason I'm like, it's time to brawl. Like usually I'd be like, yeah, you know, everyone can have their own opinion, and you know, we deal with rude people nicely. But having no caffeine in me, like for some reason I'm like, man, like things that are aggravating me are starting to aggravate me. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here is going to go to Monsieur Gaston, who puts in a $10 super chat. And huge shout out to you, Monsieur, for that support.
Hey!
And also, by the way, real quick, I saw the person you're referring to that you got upset with earlier. I said, what country are you from? Because I saw them make the statement, it's fine if the U.S. leaves and doesn't help. I will be totally fine. First of all, I have to disagree with that. But they said, I'm from the Netherlands.
Wait, hold up. Aren't y'all the country that has such a small military that y'all tied it into the German military because y'all can't hardly support it? Like, if I'm remembering correctly, Jazz,
I believe so.
Yeah, the Netherlands is the country that is literally so weak they had to tie their military directly into Germany's to do anything. I'm not dissing on the Netherlands because the Netherlands is a great country, but don't sit there and then say, "Oh, screw America," and then tell us to run off when you live in a country that would not be able to exist even without Germany. Like I mean, that's not really a good point to make right there. And also,
the Netherlands has to have the USA, and just understand, like whoever this person is, that Europe's power does not come from individual countries. It only comes from the coalition of these countries. Because no single European country, in my opinion, except for a handful of them, like Germany, has the power to be able to hold off the Axis powers on their own. It's simply not possible. The U.S. could do it, but it would be somewhat of a struggle if we were all on our own. So it's important to have like Great Britain, Australia, and all of our other partners on board with us. The power of an alliance is tremendous. So I don't understand why there's an offense about the U.S. like supporting and helping the defense of the Netherlands. I don't understand that.
Yeah, you know, I don't get it, and you know, like that. That's the thing, and you know, and I feel like we're falling into the same trap that a lot of people fall into. It's arrogant people like you who end up, and I'm speaking specifically to this one person in the chat. It's arrogant people like you in Europe who end up souring Americans into wanting to be allies with European nations and help them out. Because my honest reality is that European nations are amazing countries. The Netherlands is a great country. Germany is great. Hell, Luxembourg's great. France is great. All of them are great, and they're great, incredible allies that bring so much to the table economically, culturally, and militarily. Every single one of them. And I would be more than happy for the United States to carry the load for every single member of this Western sphere and do all the heavy lifting just because we're the leader of the sphere and everyone will be able to ride on the good times of the gravy train. But then there's folks like you who come in with your very arrogant mindset and start just souring everything with everyone. And I see people in the chat are starting to get angry with it too, and are going, you know what, America ought to leave y'all. And I would say that's the problem with mindsets like that. America is not a country that doesn't want to help people. America wants to help people. That's the biggest thing over here, is people complaining about how we don't help people. That's like the biggest thing that protests in this country are started for. And the crazy thing about it is that folks like you are the greatest weapon against kind-hearted Americans who do want to help out around the world and be the leader of the sphere. And also, Octavian, I see what you're saying. I understand. You don't have to retract that message. That's a fair point. But and
also, by the way, I want to make it clear as well, like the comments I'm making about Europe and the security and stuff like that, the United States also relies on the EU. Like, make no doubt about it. I'm not trying to say we don't. Like, we need the EU as well as an alliance as a whole. And I'm not making any disparaging comments toward the EU and also Europeans as well. Me personally, I don't really judge the European Union by just a few people. There are arrogant people in the EU, just like there's arrogant people in the United States as well. There's some people in the United States that literally say, we don't need the EU. We don't need nobody. We'll be fine. It's like, well, we won't be saying that if a world war breaks out because we don't want to be on our own private island over here. We're going to want some assistance. Naturally, why wouldn't you want the assistance? Why would you want to stand on your own just to be a man? That makes no sense. So we're not trying to play macho man here. We're trying to make sure the West survives. So, that's just me.
Also, trade's how we make money, so it wouldn't make a lot of sense to go get rid of all of our trading partners and sit on our own, because that's what Francisco Franco did in Spain, and the economy collapsed. I mean, it literally collapsed inwards on itself so bad, Spain still hasn't recovered from that. So that makes no sense. And I want to make this very clear before we move on, because the guy clearly at the end was trolling, and I want to make this as clear as possible. My actual opinion on the situation is that Europe is an amazing group of allies. If it wasn't for Europe and America existing together as allies in this world, the Western sphere wouldn't exist. It wouldn't. The Europeans are an incredibly important member of this alliance. The only thing I want, though, is that for everyone in Europe to understand that America is a very vital part of that alliance, and for Americans to understand that Europe is a very vital part of that alliance as well. Alliances do not get along or last long with condescending attitudes being given by everyone in between. Because there's plenty of things that everyone could complain about every single country, Europe on Americans and Americans on Europe, that would end up ripping the entire alliance apart if we were to begin to focalize on them and just really blow them up out of proportion. That is the problem. And I think that really going forward, because this has always been my mindset, but going forward, I would love to see this in the chat. Americans respect our European allies, and for Europeans to respect their American allies, because without one or the other, this alliance would not exist. And the greatness that the Western world is, and still is to this day, wouldn't be a thing either. So I hope that does address that the best I can, and kind of, lay out the groundwork of what I think it should be like going forward. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here, like I said before, goes to Monsieur Gaston, who puts in a 10. And he's going to throw us for a whiplash routine, because he's throwing us right into the marmot segment. He said, hello, Governor. May you have some plums for sale?
Let me see if I can get him up on screen. Man, we went through like a whole a rigmarole there, and then we got into the marmot. But hey, it's the marmot! Oh, hello there!
Would you like a piece of Europe?
Or would you like a plum? Maybe a plum would be more sensible, maybe. But you can have.
Oh, wait a minute. The marmot said, "Oh, hello there. Would you like a piece of Europe, sir?" You go to the fly. Wajal, Bing Sheling. We'll take a piece of it all.
Oh no, Governor! It's the Chinese. They're going to reel you in with predatory loaning. Right away. But anyways, I gotta say, it's wonderful to have the marmot here, and it's beautiful, and I gotta say, thank you so much, Monsieur Gaston, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and thank you for getting us the marmot up on screen. The marmot is beautiful. It's an amazing creature. It unites the entirety of the Leaf Spring Army all together, all under one flag, and I love to see it. It's a beautiful little creature. Don't we all love to see the marmot? Put an LSA in the chat if you love the marmot. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Blue Flam 777 LSA, who puts in another 10. And huge shout out to Blue Flam. That is the third support of the night, and huge shout out to him for that. And he says, let's see here. Let me read this. Blue Flam is putting out the minefields these days. I'm telling you what. If Korean pop is K-pop, is Chinese rap crap. I think this one might actually be okay. It said, Blue Flam says, if Korean pop is K-pop, is Chinese rap crap?
Oh!
Question to the chat.
Oh my god, that is actually good. that actually was really good.
Scared the hell out of me. I was like freaking fluttering in the heart. Is then like, oh my god, it's something bad.
The channel's over. But with that was actually a really good one. I like that, Blue Flame, and I gotta thank you for throwing in a banger that we can actually read. Because the other ones were like, man, like we read those, it'd be over. It'd be so Jova. But still, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you help to make this thing possible. And with that, thank you so much. We're going to go get that live chat in your honor. And so what do we got, Matthew?
And the live chat question is going to go to Amy Lee Rodriguez, who says, is what they're doing just a distraction for Russia? And that's a possibility, Amy. That's why I said earlier. I think it could be a distraction potentially because, like I said, Putin just got done talking to Xi, and this is some convenient timing. China had planned on "quote unquote" punishing Taiwan for their recent political developments in their country, which are sort of not in China's favor. And they said they were going to do an exercise, but they really didn't indicate how large the exercise was going to be. And I think this exercise that's currently going on kind of exceeded expectations of even the analysts. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that it may be a diversion, maybe a distraction, but usually countries do things like this with the intent of possibly going to war. So it may be a distraction, or it may be the real deal. We just don't really know for certain. But there is a good indicator. It may even be a distraction, possibly, to try and draw American attention to the other side of the world. Also, y'all, I was really curious, what does the Yushan National Park look like? Because I saw it here. Wow, that's actually beautiful.
Mount Pektu.
That's like we're going to start off like the North Korean news editor here. But dang, let me get off
This,
that.
I think this is where Kim Jong-un was born, on the horse that was glowing, not from radiation, but from stardust. And also, I think this is where he crawled down and cut down all the trees in the forest and built a mansion. And it's probably also where he harvested all the gold from North Korea and also stole all the food from the people.
Dude, I gotta find his freaking house, man. Now that you're saying all this, I'm like, I gotta find his freaking house. Where the hell is
Is there an
his house?
airport out in the middle of nowhere out there? Did I see that correctly?
Yeah, there's an
Oh,
airport.
look at that.
It's for the tourists specifically. They land them here and then bring them up to like Kim Il Sung's house. But I can't find his freaking house. Like, it's always so easy to find until I gotta find it on air. But anyways, North Korean media loves showing this picture of Mount Pektu. It's this one in particular right here with the lake in it and everything. And then they usually have like the rapture like music in the background from like the choir. And they're like, Kim Il-sung was born in this mountain, you know, and all that crap. And also, if y'all don't know, the North Korean calendar is not like other calendars where it says like 2023, 2024. They actually start at the year 0, like AD for them, is when Kim Il-sung was born. So the year in North Korea is completely different than the year around the rest of the world. But anyways, I hope I addressed that well, you know, like just got that out there because it's a cool fact. But beyond that, I hope that also does address that question fairly well. And thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to You Don't Know GX BX, who puts in a 5 and says, "This is Blicky." And I just changed my name on YouTube, but there's no temp with Russia testing missiles will have any correlation to the Chinese exercise. LSA.
LOC. And to answer that question, I think the tactical nuclear drills don't really have a lot to do with what the Chinese are doing. It probably just coincides coincidentally at the same time. In my honest opinion, I think it is just a coincidence because if the Chinese are attempting to distract from Russia and Russia is running their pretty much own dog and pony show to pull attention towards them, it would kind of fail. So I would have to say they're probably completely separate going off of that kind of logic. But still, thank you so much for the support. And also, I like that your name was Blicky. Because for some reason, Andy, that makes me think of that song that goes, boom, 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 yeah, boom, 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 boom. Okay, you know that one? Like, I don't know why. But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again for support, helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you for making this thing a reality. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And our next one is going to go to, let's see here. It goes to Smoke the Devil's Lettuce 4L. Send a $5 donation. And thank you very much. And honestly, probably me, I'm not going to smoke the devil's lettuce, me personally, but you do you. But thank you very much for that support, and no comment to address. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you for the support. And while you didn't throw in a comment, the support does mean a lot. But sadly, devil's lettuce just ain't for me. I mean, it's a free country, do what you want. But just not for me. Also, another thing that I have to clarify here really quickly, because this is actually something that a lot of people don't know about gun laws. You see, to buy a gun, you can't be a drug user, whether it's illegal or not in your state. And that's something that a lot of people don't know. Like, while your state can legalize, say, marijuana or something like that, on the federal level, it is still a crime. So, if you are a user of drugs, you cannot own a firearm. Like, even if it's legal in your state to use drugs, you could not own a firearm. It would be illegal on the federal level. And I know that a lot of people are going to be like, well, that's not true. It literally says it on the Form 4473 on that specific, I wish I could find y'all in updated Form 4473 because I've seen them enough times to know that it actually says in parentheses below that question, while it may be legal in your state, it is still, I believe, some kind of a federal crime. It is a crime on the federal level or something like that. It says that in parentheses right below it. And so, for the reason that I own firearms, I would not use drugs because I don't want to get into a gray area of the law or anything like that. So with that, I hope that does address that well, because I'll be honest with you, I like guns more than the devil's lettuce. I never had the devil's lettuce to know, but I like guns more. So, like, in between the two, I'm going to pick the guns. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Paul in Tucson, who puts in a $5 donation. And thank you very much, Paul in Tucson, for that support. And sadly, no comment to address, but huge shout out to you, Paul, once again. And we appreciate it very much. And also, let's see here. I thought I saw something I wanted to address, but I misread it. The next one here goes to Cody Wilson, who puts in a 5 and says, do you believe that this is a sleight of hand to take attention off of Ukraine and Taiwan?
A lot of people have been asking that question, and I don't really know. It could be. It's just that this is such a large exercise. It moves from being a diversionary effort to maybe a real effort to try and actually begin a war with Taiwan. So it's kind of in a gray area where it may or may not be. I'd have to actually lean towards the Chinese are seriously looking at invading Taiwan, in my opinion. But it may also be a distraction as well. It's just that I think it's more so serious than just a diversionary effort, though. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Tiago Zane 1, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Tiago, for that support. He says, I'm sorry, this is all I can afford at the moment. And all support is appreciated. Thank you very much, Tiago, for that $5 support.
Yeah.
He says, I will do better in the days to come. And no need for that. No need at all. He says, best channel on YouTube.
Oh, and thank you. But you don't, like, here's the thing. You do not have to support the channel. You do not have to support it with a lot, a little. You could watch absolutely free. And while I did make it clear, moving on into the question segment, that we only exist through viewer support, I don't want people to feel compelled that they have to. Like that's never a thing we want y'all to be pressured for or stressed about, is that y'all have to support this thing, even if it puts y'all on a lurch. I don't ever want y'all to worry about that, but I do thank you so much for those incredibly kind words and supporting the channel. But don't worry, you don't have to do any more, you don't have to do any less, you don't have to do anything. You can just sit back and enjoy this channel if you wanted to. But thank you so much for caring enough to find it worthwhile to support and to even be concerned that way. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to Ed, who puts in a 5, and he says, Irish Ed here, it's Irish Ed. He says, I'm just checking to make sure that the Enforcer brothers and parents are doing okay, and please take one from a live chat, my limey friends. Oh, limey. Ed made sure to say, he said, that's a good thing, by the way, because I will say, when I first read it the first time, I was like, grimy. I was like, what? But it says limey. I've never heard that before, I'll be honest with you, Ed. But thank you very much for the kind words. And Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta thank you so much for the support, Irish Ed. And as far as the family's been going, we've been doing A-okay. Me mom and me dad are doing fairly well. Actually, our mom and dad are doing fairly well because we're both from the same parents. Like, I don't know why I said that like it was a bad thing, but we're both from the same parents and they're doing really well. Things have been going fine. Everyone's been doing their thing. And as far as Matthew and me have been going, we've been doing pretty good too. It's just that lately, I think the only problem I can complain about, and some of y'all have been able to see this on air, is that I'm either drinking too much coffee or too little coffee. Like tonight, it was far too little. And I'll be honest, Matthew, I don't know what it is, but it's made me feel kind of agitated. Like, not about drinking too little coffee. It's just like not having enough coffee is making me feel just agitated for no reason at all. So I don't
crazy, man.
I don't know. Like, yeah, I was sitting here and I was like, dang, I was like I was just sitting here, I was like, how do I feel? Like when I was quiet for a little bit during the speech, I was like, I just feel like agitated for no reason. I was like, I don't know why. Maybe it's because I don't have enough coffee. Because usually I'm A-okay and just totally fine. But beyond that, I hope that does address that fairly well, Irish Ed. Because beyond that, everything's been going fine. We've just been doing our things behind the scenes, working on videos, working on other things like the next merch drop. And all that kind of stuff. So things have been going A-okay. But thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang. And he put in a second one. And thank you very much, AMX10, for that $5 support. He says China are so focused on Taiwan as a domestic issue, and the drill shows that reunification matters more than their international trade relationships. You know something, AMX10? I find it hilarious that China wants to call that reunification. It's like, that's really reunifying to say, we're going to come over there and crack skull and make blood flow. It's like, that doesn't sound very reunifying to me. That sounds like a threat. So I don't know what's up with that language right there that they're using, but it's just kind of crazy. But Enforcer, what say you?
Man, it's the same kind of reunification that the Russians want to do with Ukraine, where they're like, we're going to genocide your people and make your culture cease to exist because we love you all and we want to reunify with you. It's like, what the hell? It's like, what type of messed up reunification is that? It's the same thing with the Chinese over with Taiwan. And I would agree with you, AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang. It does seem like it would mean more to them than their trade relations, and it may actually start to mean more to them in the future when their trade relations with America diminish. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
All right, and our next one here goes to Philip Fixes LSA, who puts in a $5 donation. And thank you very much, Philip, once again for that support. And it's good to see you once again. He says, Godzilla destroying Japan to bring awareness to common sense policies like a true citizen. Joke's on you. Godzilla is an allegory for poor governance.
What? Really? Like, I didn't know that. like, I actually did not know that. But if it is, that's interesting. Also, one thing that a lot of people don't know, because when people think of Japan, I've always found this very interesting in America. A lot of people have like a rose-tinted vision when it comes to Japan. Like, the government runs perfectly, the police are perfect, everything's perfect in Japan. Japan actually has a decent amount of issues, and one of the things that I will say up front seems to be a major issue with Japan is that they are hyper-capitalist. And you would think that wouldn't be a problem, because, you know, of course, I'm a big fan of capitalism and democracy and all that stuff, of no matter what form of democracy it is. But with Japan, it's ended up causing a bit of a problem, because due to the hyper-capitalism that they have, and many of the major companies, pretty much the return of the Zaibatsu at the end of World War II, has really taken over the Japanese, I guess you could say, economy. It's really started to produce this nasty kind of a world that the Japanese people live in, and especially to the point of the declining birth rates, which are due to the kind of work culture that exists in Japan, which has been pushed forward by a lot of the Zaibatsus. Which were supposed to be destroyed at the end of World War II. They were supposed to be completely dismantled and pretty much have an antitrust done on them to break them up like we would here in America, but it never really happened. And so that is actually one of the reasons why the offing rate, or I don't know if YouTube would be fine with me saying it, but I'll say it anyways, that's why the suicide rate in Japan is one of the highest in the world, is because of how crushing the work culture is in Japan, from what we understand. And, it's like, man... that is very tough. And the Japanese government is trying to find ways to fix it, usually by just encouraging people to have kids, and giving benefits for people who have kids, like tax breaks, extra pensions, benefits, things like that. But the reality is that really the only way to try and fix the declining birth rates in Japan is to try and increase benefits or something along those lines, or at least decrease I guess you could say, the demands of the work culture they have in Japan, to make it where people have enough free time and have a mental state good enough to even want to have kids. That's kind of the problem in Japan. And maybe in that instance, Godzilla really is showing some of the issues in Japan. But nevertheless, Japan is a very interesting place. Not a perfect place. A really cool place, I will say that. But not a perfect place. Just like every other area in the world, it has its own kind of special issues and problems. But still, one day I would like to go to Japan and see the place for myself, because it is really cool and very interesting. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, big shout out to Rob Wilkes, who threw in a $5 donation to the channel. And first off, Rob, thank you for the support. But second, sadly, we do not address politics on the channel, and the super chat was very political, so we had to skip over it. But thank you very much for the support, and we appreciate that you support the work. But moving on to our next one, we have a 3 from Marc-Andre Burnett, and I did not see a comment attached to it, I don't think. But thank you very much, Mark, as always, for that support. And you've been a long-time supporter of the channel, and we really do appreciate it, Mark. And he is an old guard. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I also gotta say thank you, Marc-Andre Brunette, for being an old god. You've been around forever, Marc-Andre Brunette. And I gotta thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to be possible. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And we're on to the next one.
And the next ones, then we have two of them actually from Jaka, who puts in a 2 per piece. And the first one said, "Hello, LSA, smash the like." And the second one said, "Oh, man."
and smack the like, LSA. We've gotten up to 2,400 likes, which is pretty high. And also, thank you so much once again for being a longtime member of the LSA. And oh, man. And thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
The next one goes to Booyah 360 Report, who puts in a 2 and says, send ROC question if you can get to it, and thanks. And Booyah, let's see if I got that up there. I should have it, so thank you for the support first off. And it looks like I have yours right here. I caught it, thankfully. Booyah says, would the PLA launch cyber attacks, wake up terror and sabotage cells to cause panic as a precursor to invasion of Taiwan?
Yes, they have already done that in the past a little bit to Taiwan, so I would believe that that's certainly not out of the question at all in the future. But I think they'd probably try and conduct the cyber attacks at the same time that the physical attacks would be happening, so that way it would overwhelm the Taiwanese on every level possible. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And thank you once again for support and throwing in a pretty interesting question. And with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And once again, shout out to Jaka, who put in a 1 without a comment. But thank you once again, Jaka, for that support. And with that, that is going to round out our Super Chat segment. So once again, huge shout out to everyone who supported the channel. Because you keep the work going and keep all the juices flowing when it comes to that coffee. And it turns out that even though the Enforcer said the espresso didn't work well, it sounds like it worked pretty decent to me, but he says it doesn't work well. But anyways, moving on from that, we're moving into our Morse code decoders of the stream. And to be honest, tonight, I'm not sure if I missed some people, but I only saw Mark Hodges throw it in tonight. So if someone else threw it in, let me know. But Mark Hodges said, the Morse code tonight reads, Putin will soon remove every semi-competent officer left, leaving Russia with nothing. And long live the LSA, Slava Ukraine, Slava LSA.
And that is the sound of money. And y'all got that dead on, well, you got that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. I got to congratulate you for getting it correct. And so with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next Super Chat, because we actually got another Super Chat.
So this time, we have the 3rd ever Super Chat on the live stream from Destiny Edgington, who put in 820. And thank you very much, Destiny, for that support. And she said, why does Godzilla destroy Japan, but then protect it? He's a conflicted creature. A creature of mystique. But Godzilla is of Japan, and Godzilla shalln't get off the island because we don't want him over here. But Enforcer, what say you?
You see, when we talk about Godzilla, we have to talk about the dichotomy of man, the good and the evil that exist in between the two. And the reality is that Godzilla is not destructive because he is evil and wants to kill the people of Japan. He's destructive because he doesn't actually know where to face his anger. When he crawls out of the ocean, he doesn't know where he's landed. Is he in South Korea? Is he in China? Is he in Japan? Where is Godzilla? He doesn't know. All he knows is that he is enraged from what happened to him a long time ago in nuclear testing from the United States, another country that he doesn't even know, and he knows that he must destroy. But if he knew how innocent and kind the people of Japan were, and how much they were wanting to aspire to have a prosperous life like himself, and a life devoid of harm, much like the harm that Godzilla is constantly facing just by his mere existence due to his irradiated state, Godzilla would make sure to turn and join them and defend them against the communist Chinese. It is something that we know time and time again, the age-old story, the dichotomy of good and evil, and people who direct their anger at those who do not really need it. And so with that, I hope that does address that question incredibly well, Destiny, and thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you make it possible for us to be here on air and talk about why Godzilla is not meaning to hurt the Japanese. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
So it's now time to jump into our live chat questions. And for all the trolls out there that say, You have to pay to get a question answered on their stream. That's a falsehood, as proven by the first question right here, which goes to the live chat, which goes to Greg Kelly, who says, what about the 2 Taiwanese islands just offshore of China?
Oh, you know? Wait, let me go get them. Kinmen County, and then there was another one. This is one. Where's the other one? Oh man.
Pingu?
Wait, I think it's up here. Oh man, where is it? There's Pingu County, but I don't think that's the one he's talking about. There was Kinmen, and I think it's this one right here, actually. We will know because of this museum. Yep, this is the other
Look at that little fort.
Yeah, dude, you said, look at that little fort. I was like, dude, I was like, that actually is going to get me to laugh a little. Dude, next thing you know, I'm going to laugh like a goblin in a minute. And then it'll be completely forgotten. But that is the flag of the Republic of China, because you can see the little field of blue up there at the top. So this is the island that we're looking for. So these are the 2 islands, and I believe they're both a part of Kinmen County. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Those are the 2 little islands, and they are right in the middle of Xiamen Port. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
You know, one thing the Chinese haven't factored into their whole equation here is if they get to Pingu Island and they get their ships up on that island, they're going to hear the very faint sound of a disturbing call of do 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 Pingu Pingu.
Man, better yet, man, they're going to hear noot, noot, and then they're going to go, oh no.
Oh, Jack, put it down, Jack.
Man, but they're going to go, oh no. It's just going, oh, that's terrible. Man, do not go to Pingu County. If the Chinese do anything, they ought to skip Pingu County and go straight to the mainland. Because what will happen in Pingu County will be like nothing ever seen before. It'll be fire and fury, the likes of which that has never been seen. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And but with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is going to go to Geek Hippie, who says, will Japan come to play?
Yes, Japan will come to play. If something happened in Taiwan, I actually think that why in the world do I keep on saying the Chinese? The Japanese would come to play. They would. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one goes to, let me put a red dot on that one to let me know I've already gotten it. This one goes to Oppo, the Op, who says, if Taiwan had the capability of invading China, would the U.S. and Japan assist or not?
The U.S. and Japan would probably assist. I don't know if the U.S. would actually physically join Taiwan's side and fight in that conflict, but I know that Japan most likely would. But I have a feeling that the United States would most likely try and end up supporting Taiwan. But the thing is that the United States actions have been fairly soft recently, the best way to put it. And so I'm not entirely sure on that, but I feel like we would try and respond and physically protect them by going to war on Taiwan's side. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And also, Matthew, how many live chats do we have left?
Let's see. About 5.
That's it?
Yeah.
Dude, I was sitting there. I was like, how many live chats do we want to get? Because to be honest, I'm about to fall asleep over here. So I was like, we will get every single live chat. So with that, we are on to the next one.
So our next one here goes to Avari Mendebratis, who says, if the U.S. switches to a war economy, which makes more sense, converting active factories to military production, or reconditioning abandoned factories for military production, ?
We would most likely recondition current running factories for production. It would be more efficient. It'd be more cost effective in the end, which means that it would truly transition into a war economy. Instead of the consumer end not being affected, the consumer end would be heavily curtailed, like it would be in a war economy. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And this one is going to go to TTC ZMX, who says, with the new drone and sea drone technology, is classic sea warfare practically obsolete as witnessed in the Ukraine-Russia war?
I don't think it is. I just think with the Russians in the Black Sea, there's really nowhere for them to run, and there's not enough ocean really to work with. So they're kind of stuck in a killing pen, and that's what's led to them getting incredibly high losses. As far as Ukraine's naval drones go, the only reason they're successful in Black Sea conditions is because the ranges from point A to point B are so short that they can pretty much operate near to coastlines or not that far away from Ukraine, which means that their effectiveness in a large naval confrontation would probably not be that great. It would probably be less. And also, I think that ships will evolve in the future, and we'll probably see that current ships are refitted with a larger amount of small arms or different kinds of defense systems to deal with these drone vessels that we've been seeing so far. I don't think navies, conventional navies, are dead at all. I just think that they're going to evolve to meet the challenges at hand right now, but that does not mean at all that they're dead. And the war in Ukraine is a very special kind of circumstance when talking about this kind of naval warfare. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And I think, Matthew, if I'm correct, we're on to the second to last one of the night.
Let's see. We actually, I think I forgot to look at a few of them. We actually have 5 more left.
Oh, all right. And with that, we are on to the next one.
So this time we have a super chat. This one's from Jacob Arthur, who puts in a 2 and says, do you think America will defend Taiwan?
I think we would, because of the semiconductors and TSMC being in Taiwan. I would think that, but you never really know. Like, I hate to say that. I would say that with 100% certainty, but considering how laid back America has been in responding to anything recently directly, you never really know what we would do with Taiwan. So, but I would largely lean towards we would physically defend them, in my opinion. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on rolling. And I see that you just saw what that next username was. Like, I heard you laugh and I saw it and I was like, I'm not going to laugh. And then I heard you laugh and I was like, dang. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. So our next one here is a $20 super chat from a person whose username I can't say out loud or words are going to be construed against us. And I don't want to have that happen. But they said, let's celebrate their first ever. FK threw in their first ever super chat of the live stream and put in a $20 donation. And thank you very much for that support. Your username really cracked me up. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you so much, FK, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. It is your first super chat ever. And I saw that username and I looked at it and I was like, oh man, that is a spicy one right there. It looks like a lot of people like it. You already gotten 6 likes on that thing. But still, thank you so much for the support. You didn't throw in a comment, but the support says a lot and helps us to make this channel possible and helps us to keep this thing running. And also, you had a question. If they strike Taiwan, will we evacuate our troops or risk them getting hit and going to war? I think we would probably risk them getting hit and going to war because the United States usually doesn't evacuate our troops, especially out of countries that we have relations acts with, like Taiwan, or defensive pacts with. So I would say probably not. We would probably keep them there, and then if they got hit, then we would respond. We would probably already respond before they got hit, though, in all honesty. But with that, thank you so much once again, FK, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope we addressed that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And our next one here is going to go to Muskrat82, who makes a return after a very long time in the live chat. And it's good to see Muskrat once more. He said, is it me, or does it seem that Russia wants to fight NATO for a reason to launch nukes? And is this China and Russia's plan for a two-front war?
I'm not really sure if it's a plan of theirs for a two-front war. They did just get done with a diplomatic meeting in between Putin and Xi, so it may be. But I feel like the Russians don't really want to use nuclear weapons. Fact of the matter is, if they try to use nuclear weapons, they're going to get nuked in return and get killed. So they have a pretty good incentive to not do something like that because it would just end up getting them killed. So I would say, as far as a two-front conflict, I'm not really sure if they planned that out or not, because the Germans and the Japanese really didn't plan their acts out. It's just that they ended up happening at the exact same time, and then because of that reason, they ended up loosely teaming up with each other, although not really. And I think the same thing has kind of happened with Russia and China, if a war was to break out with Taiwan. And so with that, I hope that does address it well. Thank you for being back, Muskrat82. We've been wondering where you've been. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Margaret Hemsley, who says, my question to you is, how soon can the U.S. respond if China escalates?
If China escalates, the United States could begin to respond most likely within several days, if not 2 weeks. That's talking about naval assets being moved into the area, as well as Air Force assets in their entirety. The Air Force could respond within a day, maybe even 2 days. The Navy would take a little bit longer because the ships would have to make their way towards the area of Taiwan. So, in reality, the first U.S. forces would arrive probably within the first day or the first 2 days, but naval forces would take a little while longer, maybe several days or several weeks, depending on where they're coming from. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and thank you so much once again for asking. Really good question. And with that, Matthew, how many more live chats do we have left?
So it looks like we have 3 left.
All right, and so we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Melinda Grifford Vaughn, who says, is China manning their but anyway, Melinda Grifford Vaughn says, is China manning their man-made island with military around Taiwan? And those supposed to be fishing village with air defense in villages.
I haven't heard about artificial islands being made around Taiwan. I've heard about them being in the South China Sea, though. And as far as equipping them with defensive weapons, yes, they have been equipped with that. But I don't know of any of those being around Taiwan to know for sure. So I hope that addresses that the best I can, at least with the knowledge I have, and my knowledge may be incomplete on that, so take it with a grain of salt. But with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one is going to be a super chat from Bruce Lee, who puts in a 5 and says, perhaps China is acting now since Russia isn't doing so well for much longer, as in Russia is failing too fast for China's original timetable.
That might be entirely possible. But at the same time, I don't really know if the Chinese would care. And that's kind of the hard thing about making a clear idea on that. Is, do the Chinese really care about what the Russians are doing? Because for them, the Russians have had absolutely no impact on China. U.S. forces in the area may as well be the same in number, may as well be the same equipped. Nothing has really changed in East Asia for them. It's just that things changed on the other side of the world, and Russia's economic situation has greatly decreased, and this has helped the Chinese to buy cheap, raw, bulk resources. But beyond that, nothing much has really changed, and that's what makes me kind of wonder, would there even really be a reason for them to try and coordinate their efforts together? And the answer to that is I don't really know. I honestly feel like there isn't a reason for them to coordinate their efforts, and it's kind of like Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan in World War II. They just end up doing the same things at the same time, but never really meant to do it. Because a lot of people don't know this, but in World War II, because everyone always makes it sound like Nazi Germany and Japan worked in unison, Nazi Germany and Japan were on 2 entirely different wavelengths up until, I believe it was like 1940 or 1941. And even then, even after that, they hardly did anything with each other or coordinated any of their efforts. They may as well have been 2 completely different wars happening in 2 completely different parts of the world at the same time, although they pretended like they were the same group, and we call them the Axis powers. And that's kind of the thing I'm thinking with China and Russia. It may be the same sort of a thing where they're not really coordinating with each other. It's just that they're kind of moving on their war paths at the same time. So I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And also, we have to reset the timer because I want to make sure to get our last 2 remaining live chats. So we're going to answer this next super chat, and then we're going to get to the last 2 remaining live chats.
All right. And also I saw MJ in the live chat. Michael Jackson. Not really. But they said China says it's just drills. It's not even a headline anywhere. And don't ever, like, this is not to be offensive or anything like that, but don't ever rely on what the mainstream media puts as their headlines is what's actually worthwhile news, because they put on the headlines whatever they think is going to get the viewers in on their cable network. That's simply it. Whatever they need to say, they're going to say it to make sure that they make the almighty buck. So the China story is not exactly a hot topic just yet, but it will be if things keep ramping up and going the way of a potential invasion. So that's just me. I wouldn't go with that as the metric. But anyways, moving on to our next super chat here. We have one from Jacob Arthur, who puts in a 2. It says, America has the 7th fleet in the all Pacific already.
And that's true, and I believe one of the aircraft carriers in the 7th Fleet is down around the area of the Philippines right now, so they're not that far away. It would probably take about a day or two for that aircraft carrier task force or that aircraft carrier fleet to move into operational range of Taiwan. So that is true. There is a fleet ready to go down there, but other naval assets, say more carrier fleets or something along those lines, that would take more time for them to move into the area. But still, thank you so much for the support and throwing that in, because that is true. And that's something I didn't cover at all tonight. Sorry about that, but you were absolutely right on that. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one is going to go to Elsay first name, last name, who says, with recent success in Ukraine, do you think that Taiwan has adopted a sea baby variant to combat Chinese warships?
I'm not really sure. We don't really hear a lot about Taiwanese weapons development, so I'm not really sure whether they would have done something like that, but that would be so prudent for them to do, considering that the Taiwan Strait is not that big. I mean, at its widest, which is about right here, it's only 106 miles across. And when we're talking about that kind of distance, let me go over here to the Black Sea and show y'all. From Odessa to Sevastopol, which is usually the distance that a lot of the Ukrainian drones travel, is about 180 miles. So we were talking about the entire Taiwan Strait being within a sea baby distance if Taiwan had them. So I hope that they have. We've never heard anything about that, but I would hope that the Taiwanese have wised up to cheap, inexpensive warfare, and that they have a load of those, because it would certainly help them out a great deal. Hell, they could even strike Chinese naval vessels inside of Guangzhou, Xiamen, and also, I believe, further north, the area around Fuzhou port. They could hit all of those, and even Zhengzhou as well, although that's really a part of Xiamen. But with that, I hope that does address.
We've got a whole Bing Shilling bot in here. Did you see that? Like a whole on, like, I think it was simplified Mandarin.
Oh my goodness! Oh, can we even put that in Google Translate? Like, it's just like, let me
go back up there and grab that. I saw, out of all the Chinese characters, I saw 1977 out of all that, so I recognize that part. They're telling us some history lessons. Probably one of those Putin prolonged lessons.
Wait, hang on. I got it. Evidence of the underworld. Hong Kong chief executive Li Jiachao, a greedy beast, a beastly murderer, and a team. Oh, I cannot read that. She was born in 1964. Wait, I can literally not read any of this, Matthew. Like, it's like, oh
the
my,
hell is it,
dude? Dude, it
was
is
it racist?
No, it is a sort of a crime against a woman. So I don't know why in the world they put that in. But it's good that they're gone, because that was crazy. That was literally like an absolute insane schizo thing. The detail they started to go into, I was like, what the hell? But anyways, with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
All right, and our this is actually our last one of the night, by the way. So, Enforcer, would you like to do the thing?
And so we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Avari Mendebratus once again. And he said, how much has the new Philippine partnership with the U.S. progressed to use former U.S. military bases, for example, Clark?
It's actually progressed fairly well. From what we understand, the U.S. is going to build several bases in the Philippines, most likely within the island of Luzon, which is the closest to China, and we will be able to station U.S. forces there and keep them there, I believe, indefinitely at the current point. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in short form, on how relations are going. They're going quite well. And we also just got done with a joint exercise with them, I believe, a few months ago, as far as their security is concerned. So with that, I hope that does address that well, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank each and every one of you so much once again for enjoying this channel and watching it tonight. 45,000 people have watched this stream before it ended, and tonight at the peak, there was 7.4 thousand of y'all here. We are entirely honored to have each and every one of y'all here with us tonight and enjoying this channel, because if it wasn't for folks like y'all who were here, this news would be so quiet and lonely to cover. We would cover it, of course, but there wouldn't be so much jokes and in a light, happy attitude about it, even though it is very tough and serious news. I gotta thank everyone so much for watching, and if y'all are brand new here, please make sure to subscribe, and everyone, whether you're new or old, make sure to like and comment, because it really makes us happy to see that, and it also helps us to reach more people. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And with that, thank you all for another great stream once again, and we'll see you all tomorrow night at 10 p.m. Eastern on Friday night, that is, and also maybe even tomorrow midday for the short war summary if there's enough news to cover. And with that, thank you all once again. Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, protect Taiwan, that is, and also Yam Israel Chai, I believe it said. I think I butchered that, but y'all know what I mean. But anyways, good night, and see you all tomorrow.
The lead spring army sends its regards.